All right, good Tuesday morning, everybody. Going up on a Tuesday, like Nebraska's 2026 football recruiting class.
Ayo.
It was a good day yesterday. That used to happen around here regularly. You get banger after banger in a span of about 2 hours. So where Sharpie was right.
Yes.
2 for 2 yesterday, but
Attaboy.
a nice 2 additions to Nebraska's class.
Good crystal balls.
The running back, though, his nickname's got to be Ja, right?
Has to be.
So
Ja
we just
Rule.
call him Ja Rule.
Mr. Rule.
Why would you call him Mr. Rule?
I don't know. I just like people like adding a Mister
No,
to
no.
the front of things.
All right, Doris Burke.
No. There's a little old man soul in you.
J Rule.
That's true. He
Ja
does
Rule.
have some old
Ja
man soul
Rule.
in him.
Ja Rule. You familiar with Ja Rule?
I am. The only reason why I'm really familiar with Ja Rule is that viral moment where he went to Milwaukee. And he performed on like 90s rap night. And he's like, oh, it's funny. They brought a 2000s artist out for 90s rap night. And then like nobody got the joke. And then also I love 50 Cent. And then so I know their beef. And then 50 Cent bought the first 2 rows to like his concert.
Yeah.
And so he like performed at a concert and the first 2 rows were empty. So that's how I know Ja Rule.
Now that's how you do it. I like that
not
kind of
because I
pettiness.
know a lot of his songs and I'm a massive fan. I just know.
No, take your
other
W.
stuff,
Take
the
your
other stuff.
W. You get a win. You know who he is.
There's also on a Tuesday, it's parade day in Oklahoma City. You think anybody will
Care?
be
Except down there.
People have a lot
people
of
in Oklahoma City care. You know why like the media don't care about Oklahoma City?
Why?
Because I was
Oklahoma
listening to a
City.
podcast yesterday, about the NBA. Oklahoma City is the toughest city to get into for NBA national writers and broadcasters.
Is it just the
I believe it.
airport is not?
There's no real like
adequate?
direct flights to Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
Flying to Dallas.
So there's already like a negative connotation about Oklahoma City because I guess it's a pain in the butt to get there and there's not a lot to do.
I can see.
I can
So
confirm.
people are like, and that's a dumb way to go. Okay, well, I'm not going to talk about the Thunder, but
That is weird.
it is parade day today in Oklahoma City.
Hopefully, it's better
We're not
than
flying there, right?
the Panthers parade. That not that it was empty, but it definitely didn't look like they were painting the town red.
Well, where they had it is not an area where they're
Okay.
not. They had been partying for like 4 days.
they have been.
Like
Did
I'd
they do
seen-
it in Sunrise?
They've-
I'd
dented the
seen-
cup.
No, they went everywhere. So they had stretched the party, and they didn't do this big grandiose where you had it
Sure.
was not real conducive to large crowds.
But
Okay.
fun was had by all.
Oh, they make hockey celebrations, whether it be on the ice,
Oh, they
in
do
the
it
in the
right.
locker room or your parade,
They make your
are
liver
the
hurt.
best of the best.
Mhm.
Like no one can touch it. And you know, not everybody can be J.R. Smith, where he was shirtless for 3 months after the Cavaliers won the NBA championship.
Was
That's
warm.
why people are knocking Oklahoma City.
Well,
Like Oklahoma City is showing us.
That's true. Christian Brown kept his shirt off.
Yeah,
They might be onto something here.
I mean, there's always that one guy, that is shirtless at the party, and you wonder who they are, and they usually are the life of the party.
what?
But like J.R. Smith, they went to Vegas. You didn't see J.R. Smith with a shirt on for literally
No.
3 months.
No.
It is hot
But-
there, though.
I mean, I don't know that we're going to see Chet Holmgren shirtless today.
What did they do after they won the title? I'm convinced. I think they just went home.
Who,
and got
Oklahoma
a-
City?
Yeah,
They went to
and
Brahms, of course.
and they got a good night's sleep.
Well,
That's what I think.
little ice
happened.
cream.
I think the thing with the you have to go
Something to
back to how they learned how to celebrate on Sunday night. Is they had to YouTube how to pop champagne bottles. Now, to be fair,
I
They
think
could have
that's
just
a-
asked Sam
That's actually
Presti.
a good indicator,
Not-
by the
they
way,
don't-
that they take care of their body.
they don't practice. Like you don't. You know, I know there are coaches that
Sure.
begin the basketball season and they'll cut down the nets. Hey, this is what we want to do at the end of the year. I don't think there's any basketball team or any professional team that in spring training, for example, in baseball, they go, okay, today is the day after you hear about the dangers of tobacco use, we're going to learn how to open a champagne bottle.
Put on your
So-
goggles, everybody.
But champagne isn't like the choice as prevalent as it used to be in locker rooms. It's
Right.
more like beer
Mhm.
because it's
Yeah.
usually sponsored.
Yeah, Michelob.
So
Budweiser.
So you have a lot of that. They just appear to be Oklahoma City, and I don't know. They may not be cool, but you're going to see a lot of that AT&T commercial. Oh God,
jeez. They're
Those-
going to make a new one, too, of them
those
in, like,
three,
gold suits.
the three main guys for the Thunder, they're going to be all over your TV
Wasn't
next
last year's
basketball
worse,
season.
though?
What was last year's?
It's during the tournament. They had like a song, and we would always talk about it on
2
the
years
show.
ago, and then the past year they showed him in styling.
Yeah,
they sang the year before.
The Villanova
Yes,
Wildcats
that's what it was.
commercial was great.
It got a little bit old.
No, that never got
I
old
think
for
it
me.
does.
Yeah, my wife hates them now.
Okay, good.
Because
Here's a great
we
question.
watched so much basketball
There
in
you
March,
go.
it was always on.
What commercial doesn't get old at this point?
Answer your question.
Burger King. I still like the Burger King commercials.
Maxwell the pig.
Excuse me?
What?
I've never heard of Maxwell the pig.
Yeah, you have.
What
we
is
talked about him. He's the pig that goes wee.
Oh,
that one.
it has a name?
Yeah.
I thought it was just the pig that went wee.
No, the mom yells at Maxwell, "You're home."
Where's the general? Go to the general to save some time.
That's okay because it doesn't. It's not in the rotation as much.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the
fan of
general,
that.
as in he's dead.
Oklahoma City, the guys just might not be cool. Or it goes back to a point that I tried to promote for you: is Gen Zers 18 to 24 don't drink as much. They just don't.
Let's go to Matt for this is fascinating.
I'm probably the wrong one.
You don't count, but you know your age group.
It is true.
You're an old soul.
Fitness, especially like on social media and just in my generation, has become a really, really big deal, right? You see more and more kids my age who are having like gym memberships and consistently working out and like worried about like how much fitness. No, if they're in shape and how good they look and the fitness and whatnot.
Hey, they got a leg up.
I knew plenty of people who not only didn't really drink in college, but then also too, I know plenty of people who once they got out of college, they stopped drinking. So, I mean, that's just, it really isn't, I'm not overly surprised that they are just a team and they are a group of people who are like, we're not big drinkers, considering the fact that they don't have like those wily veterans who are like taking them out to clubs and everything like that.
Wasn't Jalen Williams? It was Sunday night was the first time that you drank beer.
Yes,
and so he had the like we all do the first time you drank beer for the first time and you have that taste and you're like, wow.
Someone needs a Gatorade. Give him a Gatorade to chase that down.
Bitter beer face.
Why not just brush your teeth? That would be awful.
Brush your teeth. That's even worse than Gatorade.
That's
then have Gatorade after.
After I had my first beer. We brushed our teeth.
After I had my first beer, I had Gatorade.
Because you were dehydrated?
No, because I just needed to get the taste out of my mouth.
No, the first time I ever had beer, Jenny Layden, Sherry Tibbetts, and Sharpie, 8th grade.
Hey, all right.
They brought Sherry Tibbetts, who
like the ratio.
Yeah, who I wonder what she's doing these days. She was she wanted to be. She's a lot of Catholic school girl in her.
I got you.
But she had an edge. And then there was another girl named Megan. I won't say her last name because her sister is very, very popular.
Okay.
And I want people to put 2 and 2 together. Like her sister is extremely popular and well known across the country. So she was involved as well. No. You could put 2 and 2 together in Des Moines. But she brought over Sherry Tibbetts brought over a beer, and then Megan brought over toothpaste and a toothbrush.
Look at that, a team effort.
Because we all shared one.
Sure.
And then they're like, "Oh, you got to get this out of your mouth. You got to get the taste out. So you got to brush your teeth."
Yeah, I wish somebody told me.
It was awful.
I wish somebody told me that before I went home after having my first beer alone.
Yeah, just my mistake wasn't. We never Mom never caught on to the breath. It was that somebody was stupid and threw the empty beer can into a bush in the front yard.
Yeah,
see, I knew this part. Yeah,
not good. Well, my first beer technically was at Wrigley Field with my grandfather.
Same.
He was like, you got to learn how to be a man, and made me have a beer at way too young of an age. I went to Charlie Anderson's grandmother's house and had a couple of beers there, and unfortunately, I spilled a beer.
Of course you did.
On my hoodie, and I didn't think anything of it, so I just wiped it off. And then I had to go to my mom and be like, "Hey, I'm home." And I walk in, and she goes, "You reek of beer." This is exactly what she said. And Dad flipped
new
out.
deodorant. I'm just trying out.
Yeah,
flavor.
yeah, not great. Not great at all.
Well, I mean, there's 18 to 24-year-olds drink less.
This is a fascinating thing, though. That's true.
But maybe the Oklahoma City guys.
I think just that they're young and focused.
So my Brahms joke isn't too far off.
No, not focused. They're end of the year.
They're on vacation.
You're not playing anymore for a while.
I was shocked just as much as anybody else was that there was like 80 beers left and like 13 bottles of champagne.
They just don't drink. But maybe behind closed doors when they went to Edmond to Chet's house,
Mm.
and they had a little party.
Played
Like I
some
don't,
video
I don't
games.
expect today. Like
D&D.
I've
Well,
seen the
did-
setup
whoa.
inside of their arena, and it's like this is so like wholesome parade day. This is not what we just saw with the Panthers or like the Penguins.
What's the
or
prayer
OV.
thing they do before a game? Invocation?
In Oklahoma City?
Yeah.
They do.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's at Oral Roberts.
No.
Oh.
That's at the Thunder.
Whoa.
Yeah, I've been there.
They do.
They do an invocation before the game.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
As my friend who was in politics down there checks out, said, we like the Bible down here. It's like, I didn't really assume otherwise. I didn't really think about that. So, yeah. So they might do that before the party.
This.
So, yeah, there'll be cake and ice cream.
This might be the first test of the Gen Z's drinking.
They got a
has
mascot, Rumble.
declined.
He'll be there.
Yeah, once again, not I am not a part of this, but good for them.
You're one of us.
Yeah, before every tip-off, the Thunder Arena pauses. It's the only known pre-game invocation in the NBA.
Yeah. They don't do this in Dallas. They don't do this in New York.
That's incredible. I had
Chicago.
no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's prior to the
Been to
national
Oklahoma
anthem.
enough. It makes sense.
Well, they still had all the beer and champagne
Well, yeah.
for everybody out there.
But he gets what the leftovers when you come into the arena today.
Yeah, here.
Like,
Bottle
where do you
champagne.
think they'll go for the parade? Like, is it
No.
downtown is, and I think
Probably.
Oklahoma City is really like has come a long way,
Yeah.
but there's not like a huge downtown.
But they could line the streets there.
Well, I mean, they love their
Lead
team.
up to
They
the,
love their team, and rightfully
arena.
so. I mean, they might be doing this a
Bricktown.
couple of
for-
times the
yeah.
next decade or so.
I think they got a nice reservation at 7:30 after the parade. You know, they got
At Mickey Mantle's downtown.
Yeah, everybody. They got to make sure that everybody's buttoned up and ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you don't want it to be too sloppy.
I haven't been
for the parade.
I haven't been there in a while. Do they still have? And unfortunately, they have let the baseball stadium, Bricktown Ballpark, like just.
Which is unfortunate, too. It's
Yeah,
a
when it
good
opened,
ballpark.
it was great. The
Yeah.
location right there, and they did that little waterfront, that MAPS project they had that revitalized downtown.
Mhm.
They used to have a restaurant that was connected in left field that we'd always go to
Oh.
after games,
That's nice.
and it changed. Calvin Sampson, I think, owned it once, and then Johnny Bench was involved. I don't know if that's still around, but they don't have like a huge downtown. Like Oklahoma City is pretty spread out, but it is a parade day. They of course, who would have thunk it, or maybe this isn't the case, is that LSU players on Sunday night at Blatt Beer and Table would party more than the Oklahoma City Thunder. So there are some legendary stories that are coming out once again of LSU players on the town after they were released. They went back to the hotel, they went up, they showered, and they got out, and they were
Oh, they
balling.
were partying up.
Yeah, so they went.
Nice.
So
As
the
they
place,
should.
Blatt Beer and Table, is where LSU guys were DJing, and among other things.
I have the map for the Oklahoma City Thunder parade route.
Wow.
It's going to go down 35 and go down to Norman.
Yep.
It is
Go to
literally-
Campus Corner.
They go
Stop at
straight,
Sugars.
They go straight. They go left. They go straight, and then they go right.
So how long is the parade? route?
It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blocks. It's got to be like maybe 2.5, 3 miles.
Okay.
They go from
Like a tornado.
10th Street. Okay, so they start on 10th Street and they end up on like 3rd Street.
That's 7 blocks.
Plus
How about
plus like 4 streets that have names. So it's like 10 blocks worth of parade.
Think anybody will carry it live?
No.
Well,
down there.
like
maybe
ESPN2.
local.
NBA
Well, yeah,
TV.
No, local. I've already seen
Yeah.
guys that I follow that work for the sports
They'll
animal.
probably
They're
put
already
it-
there inside the arena doing
When-
their shows live.
Depending on what time they start, I imagine they'll probably like put up hey, the parade is going on right now. Or
Like NBA TV. Does NBA TV carry it live?
Usually.
Oh, probably.
Usually,
I
that's
mean,
where I've
They
watched my
probably carry
parades.
the whole thing.
Yeah, you have to, right? You carry the local coverage.
Oh, what else are you going to show?
Those floats. Look
Although no one
really,
cares
really
about that. We
good.
got the draft tomorrow. That's the main thing.
We do have the draft tomorrow.
That is true. Also, so as the College World Series and they're tearing down, I think the Ferris wheel is coming down today.
Damn.
I found a downside to the Jello shot challenge.
Oh, what's the downside?
So as this whole first segment has been about drinking,
Yeah.
first of all, it's become
And the lack thereof.
it's become associated with the College World Series. Like it might have the potential to be bigger than the College World Series.
You have Livy Dunn on a microphone being interviewed by people literally talking about that challenge.
You have Matt Rule reposting that tweet.
Crazy.
So it is turned into this monster thing, And there is the charity part of it at the end of the day that is really, really cool to food banks with the guys at Rocco's do. But I think that the purity, can you say that about a contest that involves Jello shots?
It's for charity.
I think
so
the
yes.
purity, I think the purity of what it was supposed to be has eroded.
Deep.
It definitely has evolved. It definitely has evolved
Those are
into
two
something
different
that they
words.
did not anticipate it would evolve into.
I think it has completely changed.
Because what was the purity? Just like a fun way to get drunk? Or
fans bought shots.
Yes.
Now I think it's been ruined by corporations who
Like
buy
everything
large amounts of shots remotely.
Well, that
and then they pass them out. So, like, the contest isn't the same. Now the numbers are through the roof.
yeah.
But I think that it has kind of I think the corporate buyers have trampled on our little thing here in Omaha.
Okay, the calling in to buy shots is lame. Okay, that is lame. All right,
That's what they
you
do.
You can't just call and also too.
People are complaining in the SEC that LSU rigs the contest.
Because when you have Raising Cane's guy
that's what
call
I'm telling
in
you.
and buys 40,000 shots and uses all or not 40,000,
But
but
who's
going to
beat
shots.
them? No one came close to beating them.
I mean,
Did you see
800.
Did you see the numbers for the West Coast teams?
It wasn't
Yeah.
even close.
I think if you added
The three of us could beat them.
Well, I think if you added the three together, you'd get a shade over 5,000. We need
That's
SEC
impressive, actually.
teams. Y'all come once in a while, but we need SEC teams.
I did my part with UCLA. I made sure that my one shot that I bought went to the Bruins. But the calling in shots is dumb. I think they have to make a rule that, like, in the spirit of the game, that you have to be there 10 toes on the ground in order for your shots to count toward the
diabetics are out.
leaderboard. Well, because then it just becomes like, it doesn't become like hey, we're here at the Rocco's experience. It just becomes how many numbers can we put on a big old whiteboard? It's not a. Now, I did like it when it was like a really, really long line and they were making like homemade shots and little like cartridges that you would like dip ranch in. Like there was something homey about it. It was very
at least now it's it moves a lot quicker now that they have people that do
so
their
much
shots.
quicker. Like you can't even you don't even wait in line anymore. I remember in 2022, you had to wait in line for a good 5 minutes, but it was like a Disney World ride. It was like part of the experience. It was like, hey, we're here at Rocco's. Now you kind of just walk in and you just you get 6 shots and you're good to go. And you're like, all right, we did it. Like there was a little bit of a rarity to it. Now they have this. Now they're too efficient.
Yeah. Well, now that part I don't have a problem with because
it's never good enough.
I mean, that would be a nightmare to make so many of those. Now they have supplied. But the people calling in, you've trampled on our little Omaha tradition that has a potential to be bigger than the College World Series in terms of what are you coming to Omaha for?
Well, I don't think it'll be bigger than it's bigger than the College World Series because I think you will always go to the College World Series.
But what do you come to the College World Series and what's the first thing you do?
Okay, bang. So there you go. If somebody told me, hey, we're going to Omaha to go to Rocco's Bar and Grill to buy 10 Jello shots. And then, oh, hey, by the way, then we're going to a baseball game. I'd be like, your thinking is backwards there. All right. Like we're going to the game and then we're going to the bar. But yeah, I mean, they have expertly aligned themselves with this event and have become a staple of the event where it's like, once you are there, you go to Rocco's and you got to put your number on the board.
Had somebody again yesterday, wasn't specifically about that establishment, said, so what happens now when the College World Series is over?
Yeah, nothing.
And I said,
count down to football.
I said, those businesses that are in that area, they just hope for a span of about 2 weeks, they made 70% of their profits for the year.
Lefties is good. Lefties will be fine. Lefties will be prosperous, especially during the summer. Rocco's specifically is just kind of the bar next to lefties.
I think that whole area down there, and I mean, the ballpark's done for the year.
Yeah.
I mean, they have a high school showcase the 3rd through the 6th.
No Motley Crue this year.
No. So the ballpark is now basically a couple of more events. Now they have some private stuff up in the suites and things like that in the club. But in terms of on the field, it's done. I mean, you're shutting that place down, so there's nothing to draw people down there. That's why
Almost
if they ever
get
get over the hump, when they put the soccer stadium in the millwork area,
Sure.
and the millwork area already is expanding, then you have more foot traffic outside of the College World Series. But the one thing with millwork, and I like that area, and I was talking to somebody who actually works in a business over there, is you can't see it. Like, if you're driving down coming,
Okay.
and you're like, hey, yeah, go over to the millwork, man. That's a hip place. It's growing. It's like the new,
Sure.
Is that to the left when you're
I
driving
don't know.
down Cummings?
I don't
So if
really
you
know
walk
where
out,
it
if you
is.
walk out the front of the ballpark where the statue is,
Yeah.
and you got the 2 hotels there, then you walk beyond the hotels. That's Millwork Commons behind it.
Is that where
And
Cross Grain is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I
got
went
you.
there.
No, I didn't know it was the millwork though.
You just walked over there?
He just
Yeah,
walked
I
over.
just walked. Josh is like, hey, we're going to Cross Grain. I didn't know that area with all those places.
But you can't like see it from when you're driving down coming.
Sure.
But if they get, because the soccer stadium had to move, and the project a little bit smaller, if they put it right there in Millwork Commons, then you have, basically a year-round thing that's going on.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
And so they'll draw some foot traffic there. But that's like we move on so quickly from areas like Midtown. Sure. Midtown's dying. Okay, I don't care if the streetcar runs through there. Midtown in this city is dying.
Well,
okay, y'all that pay so much money to live there in that condos that look to be really, really nice, man, I hope they drop the rent, because that place it's kind of sad because there's a lot of empty storefronts in Midtown, and then Blackstone took off, and that's popular.
Yeah.
Where I live is a popular area.
Our Village is awesome.
So Millwork Commons is like the next area to like.
Well, Midtown, it's just there's so much construction over there. It's just like there's no want, at least for me, to like park or eat.
Oh, it's terrible to people that own businesses over there.
Yeah, or go or do anything over there. And then in terms of like even for Creighton games, like I don't know anybody really like, oh, Rocco's is the spot where you go in pregame before you walk over to the Creighton. Now, Capital District is always fun. The second I got here, people were talking about the Capital District and hanging out at the Capital District. But I would say
before 10.
For people my age, it's the Capital District, it's the Old Market, and then it's Blackstone.
No drinking.
Well, you know what? The guys who aren't drinking
not
are
counting
winning
you.
NBA titles.
Not counting you.
Maybe I should probably take their lead and not drink as much, or I'll be an NBA champion.
I'm glad you're supporting your favorite NBA team today. I see.
Yeah, great trade. It's an incredible trade. Sad to see Drew Holiday go, but Anthony Simons. Welcome to I'm not a Celtics fan. I'm a Bulls fan. Derek Queen or bust, baby. What? What'd you say? What do you
got to get the we'll get you corrected on the guy that they acquired.
Simons. What did I say? Wasn't Anthony Simons?
It was a good trade for Boston.
Who did they trade for?
But you're supporting
Kevin Gamble.
Kevin Gamble. Good on you, former Iowa Hawkeye. We're wearing the hat because it's cool today?
We're wearing the hat because I have so many hats that I can't wear. All right. I have way too many hats that are hanging up on my wall that I look at every morning. I go, can't wear that, can't wear that, can't wear that. This is me standing up. Okay. This is me being rebellious. This is me saying I have all of these hats. I should be able to wear whatever hat whenever I want to. Okay.
Yes. Good. It was a good trade for Boston to get Simon.
They needed to dump that contract, and Drew, definitely took a step back last year and isn't the player that he was and can't be the on-ball defender that helped them win those championships. And so
love the NBA. The trade talk will dominate parade day.
Sad to
Yes.
All right. Sam McKewon's coming up at 7:30. Brian Christopherson at 9. Of course, both of them had busy days yesterday as Nebraska picked up a baller at cornerback and Danny Odom. And then they got Ja Rule at running back about 90 minutes later. Those are the good old days.
I like how you asked. You ask, his nickname's got to be Ja Rule, right? And then you're just going to make
it is
name
now
Ja Rule.
What? I mean, come on, Jamal or Ja?
No, Ja. No,
yeah.
Ja. No, it's a good nickname.
Hey,
it's a good nickname.
I'm looking into his branding.
It's all about the brands.
It's all about the brands.
All about the brands.
Oh my God, it is all about the brands, and I hate it because I see players show up at events, and I immediately think, are they here out of the goodness of their heart, or are they being paid to be here?
Yeah.
I hate that. I hate
probably,
that.
I
hate that we are. That is part of the discussion, but it's the new age.
If you had the option though to never go anywhere for free, why would you?
Oh,
Like
we used to.
if you could,
We used
yeah, I
to.
know, but it would be
Now corporations pay you to come to their event as a college kids.
I'm just trying to think of like, is anyone going to buy an extra HVAC system because a 21-year-old defensive lineman is there?
I mean, you never know if you need a tiebreaker.
But it's
a good point.
It's about branding and connection. So you get, you see it.
Top of mind
you're
awareness.
like, I see. Okay, yeah, I attach them with that.
Sure.
No, I don't think when you get into some of these promotional deals, you immediately think, okay, they're gonna sell us 45 extra cars.
Sure.
But at some point, there are businesses that probably go, what is our return on investment if we're investing heavily in this athlete?
Yeah.
That's
why
now just pay to play. Okay. All right. Let's award you. Score a touchdown. I'm going to give you $500. Andy
That's
Kennedy
how it used to be.
Andy Kennedy will stop by at 9:45 with his recap of the College World Series that is over. College baseball is sad. This is day 2 of darkness in Omaha. And it actually is very dark
It's
outside.
so dark today.
We get some riin here today. That is the lineup brought to you by the referees at John Higgins Weather Guard. Also happening yesterday, for only the 6th time in the last 50-plus years, Nebraska has a new radio voice for football. We'll tell you about Kyle Crooks, who was officially announced yesterday, and more on Nebraska's big day in recruiting that occurred. Plus, I have a fondness now from somebody who has sadness. I'll explain.
Okay.
It's Gary and Matt with Jimmy, 1620 The Zone. All right, welcome back in, Gary and Matt with Jimmy.
What are you
all
holding?
getting? I got a baseball from the College World Series. That's a nice little pearl. That is not a used one.
I did. I also got a ball, but we used it to throw around and breaking my mitt. So, like that collector's ball, I've been like playing catch with it with my buddy. I don't know if you were gonna look at me and disgust and be like, I can't believe you used a College World Series ball, but I used College World Series.
Was it just a one that we asked the Omaha softball players who are the ball girls if we could have a baseball?
Were they the ball girls?
Yeah,
I did not know that. No, wait, let me see that one.
It's just it's not used.
No, I don't have.
It's
I don't
not
have
used
that
because it's not rubbed down. So this was not a ball that would have been in play.
I was given like a 75th anniversary ball.
Oh, okay.
From like the NCAA.
Oh, was that out of the media gift?
Yeah. I used.
You played catch with that?
Yeah, I played catch with the media gift ball. My buddy goes, "Hey, it's his ball. I gifted it to him. I was like, hey, this is a nice little gift for you. Here's here's a collector, collectors, whatever." He goes, "You want to play catch?" I go, "Yeah." I go, "You got a ball?" He goes, "Yeah, the one that he gave me." And I go, "Oh, okay." So we used it, and we just played catch with it. It's a little scuffed up now, but it still has the logo on it. Like, you still can display it.
You didn't put it in a case? That's kind of a 75th anniversary.
I gifted it to him.
It'll end up in a box.
Yeah, it'll be fine. I gave it to him because when you come home with
I know he had been missing you, and you guys hadn't.
We did not see each other for 4 days, and he was like, "I didn't know you lived here anymore." I was like, "I know, neither did I."
So you gave him a ball, and
yeah,
all right. You guys have a little
stop
candlelight
Jimmy.
dinner last night.
Stop! No, we did not.
Catch up on what's been going on for 2 weeks.
I did sleep on my glove last night though to break it in. I put the ball. You put the ball in the mitt, and then you put the mitt under the mattress.
No, you get rubber bands.
Well, yeah.
Did you put shaving cream in it?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
This is because this one you don't need to put shaving cream in this one. It's a high quality leather. It's already almost broken in. But last night my bed was able to withstand having another thing under it.
Whoa.
And it didn't break. My bed still not broken. Still surviving. Still thriving.
Okay. I don't know how to respond to that, but I guess
Congrats.
Yeah.
It would have been a great way to respond.
Good job.
Good job. Congrats, by the way, to Kyle Crooks.
Yes.
So he was announced officially as the new voice of Nebraska football, co-host on Sports Nightly. He will be involved in other things. I guess technically he's the director of broadcasting. So he was the voice of women's sports at the University of Florida and comes with a really good resume. A couple of people I know that are at UF, including the main football and men's basketball announcer, Sean Kelly, says great things about him, that he has spent his time in Gainesville, has done basically a little bit of everything, and a great opportunity for him. And so he is only the 6th radio voice of Nebraska football in over 50-plus years. And solid guy who I'm sure more people will get to know, officially announced yesterday, and he will make the rounds so that people get to know him. And there is, because I got this and, people ask me a lot of questions. The only really, really bit of advice that I have, and because it'll be, well, you know what? He's not a local guy. Yeah, it's going to be tough because
it's going to be tough.
There's some people that I think would have been just slam dunks to be the next radio voice of Nebraska that did not apply. One, because Greg Sharp might have been their mentor. And it's not an easy situation. It's not like Greg retired.
Yeah.
And he'd been here forever, and he retired, and he was handing it off. I mean, we lost somebody that is beloved in the Husker family. Greg Sharp passed away, and the emotions are still very raw with everybody, Ben and Nick and Damon and Jessica and, Matt, and everybody that worked on a daily basis with Greg. And those those should never go away. And that just shows you the impact and the kind of person that Greg was. So it's not easy to come into, and especially when people around here don't know you. But it is a really, really good hire. And I don't care if the guy is from Lincoln Southeast, if he's from Urbandale High School, if he is from Timbuktu. Here's how you make a good first impression. And this just comes from a lot of the play-by-play guys from when I first moved here and got involved on the network. Kent was the play-by-play guy, Warren, Jim, and then to Greg and now to Kyle Crooks when he begins in the fall, is the first impression is always important, but people here, and we're different here because radio still matters.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places radio doesn't matter as much because all the games are on TV. But if the person listening at home or in the tractor in the fall, if the radio guy, no, that's absolutely true.
I know.
I mean, I don't
No,
know.
they listen, especially during harvest.
City boy.
Yeah.
I don't know why you laughed at that. That's I don't know why you laughed at that.
Late September, early
That is-
October.
that is
Hell yes.
absolutely, that is real.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what makes this place special is we still listen to the game while our kids are in the backyard and they're trying to be the next Dylan Raiola or they're out harvesting. I mean, they're with you. But if the person that is describing their beloved program, if you can tell that the emotion in their voice and the way they call the game is the same emotion that you're having, like either you're excited or you're down, then, man, you are already off to a good start.
Sure.
Because that's what people want to hear around here, and that's just from listening to people. If they don't want you to call the game as a fan because you're a fan, but also you're a pro and you're very good at your skill.
Yeah.
But they want you to feel the program, okay? The program means a lot to the consumer, and they want the person that's describing the program to have the same emotions that they have, that it hurts like hell when you don't win on Saturday, but, man, it is great when you win on Saturday. And if that's the first impression, you are off to a great start.
There definitely is the whole in-state hire versus out-of-state hire and all of that stuff.
Why is that a big deal?
Yeah, everybody was out of state.
So I'm curious because
I'm looking at two people who moved here and it became part of their life.
Yeah.
Became their life.
Because that is a prevalent discussion around this job of hiring somebody that has intimate knowledge or hiring somebody that is just really good that you can acquire knowledge.
To me, if you're just good at the job and you understand the stakes of the job, then you're the right guy for the job. Just period, as like just that. If you can go and you can announce and you understand how much this team means to people, how much the history means to people, and you have an intimate understanding of that history, then you're good to go. Then you're fine.
The people will educate you.
There definitely are
That's true. That's absolutely true.
The fans educate you. Hell, that's how it is for me.
That happened to me.
And that's happening to me right now too. I mean, and for me, the one thing I do worry with Kyle Crooks is that this is going to be a very overwhelming job, at some points, at least to start, right? There's going to be a lot of people that you have to shake your hands, a lot of people that you have to meet, a lot of people that you have to remember their name. And immediately since the post, he's become a very recognizable figure, and there's going to be fans who see him and come up to him and meet him. And you got to make incredible first impressions over and over and over again, because in this business, if like you get caught on a bad apple one day,
the cinnamon roll in the chili.
Yeah. And you're just not in a good mood and somebody tries to meet you and you kind of shoo them away. People are going to be like, oh, that guy's not very nice, or I didn't have a very good interaction with him. And
lesson.
That goes across the town kind of in a sense. But, what I liked a lot is that when I looked on the Twitter, because I was a little worried that when I went through the replies, that there was going to be a lot of people being like, oh my God, he's not from Nebraska, or why couldn't you hire an in-state guy, or why couldn't you get this guy? A lot of it was
really nice.
I listened to his tape. He sounds really good. Like, this is a really good hire. So I wish him nothing but luck.
Yeah.
And like you said, if you just go in and you show a passion for this team,
you'll become one of them.
Execute your job, people here are going to embrace you.
Are you good enough that people will mute the TV?
That's a good point.
Because what KLIN syncs. Yeah. So there is no delay. And the thing about moving to the Big Ten is every game is on television.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sometimes easier to watch TV than it is to listen to the games. But they have made it easier where there's not restrictions, where you can listen on the app wherever you are in the world.
You still want to listen to your guys.
Yeah, because what happens if the analyst is an former Iowan? Okay, you don't want to listen to that crap.
No, yeah.
All right, you want to listen to but
Dylan gets banged up. Who are you going to listen to?
If your radio guy or gal is not good enough that you're going to mute the TV, then that probably says that person probably is not right for the job. But if you if you have the same emotion, the person that is listening to you, either looking at their phone or looking at grandma's radio that is soldered to KFAB on top of the refrigerator, and grandma going to need a new radio. That's another part of this whole discussion about radio, the Huskers on the radio in the state. But if I can listen and I'm a fan and I feel the emotion and the disappointment, and the guy that is describing has the same, look at the past announcers that have been overwhelmingly very, very popular, from Greg to Kent to Lyle, is you could feel as a fan they shared you the same passion and emotion, and so you had a connection. And maybe you never met Lyle Bremser,
Sure,
you never met KP, you never met Greg Sharp, but you felt like you knew him.
Mm-hmm.
Blur the line,
and they're by first name basis, which tells you everything.
I think it's all about blurring the line.
What do you mean?
Blurring the line between being the professional announcing broadcaster who's breaking down the game, who has incredible knowledge, who's educating the fan, but also blurring the line between having what you say, that passion, right? Of I want, the best announcers are the ones where that they want your team to win.
Yep.
You know that in their heart they want the Huskers.
They know you care
to win. That they know that you care, but at the same time, they have a job to do, and that they are doing their job.
And fair.
That when the other team scores, they're not going crazy and celebrating or everything like that. But they're not like introducing the visiting lineups at an NBA game where they're like, touchdown Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, no, I think that's important.
Like if you just blurring that line between, hey, I'm with you, I understand what we want, but this is me being a professional. This is me presenting this in the best way I possibly can.
Boy, do we have? Can we get a normal handoff with the voice of Nebraska football? Lyle to Kent was a normal handoff.
Yeah.
Kent to Warren Swain was a disaster. Okay,
right. You told me before that story.
I love KP. KP thought he was bigger than the program. Okay, and you also had a new network that wanted their own announcer, and they brought in a guy that was so overwhelmed in being the voice of the Huskers that he had no shot. Okay, Warren, I loved Warren. Warren was really, really good to me, but Warren was so overwhelmed by that job and all the other things that went with the job, and Paul Aaron and everything else, that Warren had no shot. And he was replacing an extremely popular guy in Kent. Okay, and then you had Warren was shivved, out of the way for Jim. And then Jim was replaced mid-season due to some health things, and Greg comes in and immediately fell in love
on
with
the
Greg.
road.
Yeah. Remember, Greg Sharp was a K-State guy.
Mm-hmm.
He was a K-State guy.
His first home game in Lincoln was 73-31.
Yeah. I mean, and then it's not Greg didn't retire.
Yeah.
Greg unfortunately passed away after a valiant battle with cancer. So can we get a normal handoff?
Yeah.
Like with Lyle to Kent was like the most normal, because Lyle was, we were at the end of our career and our eyesight wasn't as good. And, it was a natural transition into Kent. But after that, it's just like, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping
there's a lesson, kids.
I'm hoping that this will be a really good transition. It'll be a little bit rough at the beginning. But I think Nebraska made a really, really good hire.
Give him a chance. He'll become one of you.
Absolutely. If he embraces it,
he'll become a Nebraskan.
Because it's going to be difficult. It is going to be difficult. And if he embraces that difficulty and gets through the first couple of broadcasts and the first couple of just overwhelming weeks of just being the voice of the Huskers and meeting a lot of people and doing that.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't think I think when you apply for a job like Nebraska,
you know what you're getting into.
You understand.
That doesn't. You don't go in and go, oh my gosh, I can't.
No, sure, but
no, you study and you understand how huge a deal this is.
You just do the work and you do it well.
I don't care if it's Gary Sharp, Jimmy Chavez, Matt McMaster. The voice of the Huskers is a big deal in the state.
Massive.
Okay, you are
bigger than the governor.
You are the
shade.
mouthpiece for Nebraska football. I mean, people. That's one of the best jobs in the state of Nebraska. So if you're pursuing these jobs, you understand what goes to with the territory. Now there'll be some new stuff where you got to learn a bunch of new names, but I don't think being overwhelmed. If you're overwhelmed, this job wasn't for you. And that's the job wasn't.
If you're good, you just go out there and do the work.
Yeah.
Well,
he'll do a great job.
It's one thing to understand what you're getting into, and then that to actually get into it and do it. And so I just hope for him and hope for the
I think he's a professional.
I think so too.
Fine.
I think he's going to do a really good job.
All right. A little bit later, Sam McKewon will stop by. Brian Christopherson, Andy Kendi is well. So that it's not only a new play-by-play voice, it's a new affiliate in Omaha.
Yeah.
Among other things that'll be going on with the still the Husker Sports Network.
Yeah.
Is that what it's still called?
It's not us, by the way.
All right. When we come back, we'll get into recruiting. Yesterday was a good day for Nebraska in terms of recruiting. And will we have many more of these moments before we put a cap on the 26 class? I say no.
Really?
Yep.
Where we get 2 in one day?
No, I'll just say we will not. We're about done. We're about done with recruiting for 2026.
Jeez.
That's not a bad thing.
Well, it's a small class so far, but
Well,
If they hit,
we'll get
though-
into that. We'll get into that when we come
Okay.
back. It's Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone. Why, when I hear the song, do I immediately think of Entourage? It's not the Entourage.
No.
Theme.
It's the right band though. It's
Yeah.
Jane's Addiction, but yeah, this was one of their early
Was
songs.
Entourage was a really big deal, right? Because I
Yes.
only remember Entourage as like the movie
Yeah.
where Ronda Rousey was in it, and she's got that scene where she tells what Turtle, right,
Mm-hmm.
that she'll sleep with him if he can last a minute in the octagon. That's the only thing I remember from Entourage.
I think
Other
you would
than
like
that,
the show. I'm not being sarcastic.
I
I'm
have
just
a
getting
lot
to
of
know
shows
you
I
as
gotta
an
cross
older soul.
off.
Yeah, but baseball, college baseball, football's over. I mean, you got a few weeks to.
That was one of the shows I watched. So I've seen every episode and seen the movie. It just kind of, they ran out of storylines. Like, I don't know that it needed 8 seasons.
I tell people time and place. That's what
is
the show
like the
was.
main storyline of, like, I don't even know. It's just a famous dude, and
He
all
becomes
his
an
friends,
actor, and his friends go out with him out to L.A. and they're his entourage. Hence the name of the show.
and they just party and have a great time and
Pretty
get
much.
into funny stories.
Yeah.
A lot of mid 2000s angst.
Ari Gold is the agent. And Jeremy Piven, like, his career took off.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not many
He'll always be draws to
actors
me.
from that show that went on to do like big things.
No, Turtle has a podcast now.
Yeah, with Matt Leinart.
Yeah.
But Matt Leinart.
Jeremy Piven is he the person that has benefited the most?
Kevin Connolly, he's been in a couple of movies since then. I know who.
But yeah, Jeremy was already somewhat, but that his popularity exploded because of that show. He's now known as Ari Gold.
I mean, the problem is of being a typecast is what would Kevin Dillon do? Like, he's Johnny Drama.
Yeah.
So what is like next for Kevin Dillon?
They didn't spin it off. Some people said that might.
And
have been an idea.
even so, even the main, Vince, Adrian Griner.
Yeah.
He really hasn't been in
anything
since.
No.
And,
See,
and Entourage hasn't been on the air for almost 15 years. I think 2011. Yeah, because
it debuted in 04.
What they would do with their shows, their schedule, they would usually be done right before football began.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the last one that aired was the same night of like the opening season in 2011, if I recall correctly, because they would be your summertime watch on HBO.
That's what I remember him as.
Oh my God!
Especially after basketball was over. Oh,
this Google is
Chat GPT. Replace it.
It is so annoying. I'm trying to look up the last episode.
While you're doing that, Sean chimes in.
Hi, Sean.
He says, hey, if a former voice of Kansas State can and called the 98 game with a lot of power, cat passion, and became the beloved voice of the Huskers, I think he'll be fine.
Exactly.
Do you ever get a Greg Sharp call of the Eric Crouch face mask in that game?
I've actually not heard that. I've heard just about everything else from that call, including the TV broadcast with Keith Jackson. But yeah, I've never heard he and Stan. I'm sure Stan thought it was just incidental contact.
You ever heard the Nebraska broadcast of that call?
I have. There was not incidental contact. It was a penalty. Should have been called.
People didn't know what was
should have been a first down.
Exactly was going on.
Would have been 1st and 10 about the 40.
2011.
They've been in good shape.
Good call.
Last year,
Entourage. You think they bring that back?
No. And that's okay.
See, they went and made a movie, and that was good.
It was a few years later.
So I thought the final episode, the final episode on HBO, I thought was perfect. Everybody left. They flew off, and people fell in love. I didn't need a movie.
I didn't either.
Have you seen Peaky Blinders?
No.
Okay.
I'm aware of it.
You would. I haven't seen it, but I know a lot of people who love it and they swear by it. It's a show. It's with Tom Hardy.
Oh, I know. Who he is.
And Cillian Murphy's in it too.
I know who that is.
It's a really, really good show. They're doing the same thing. So Peaky Blinders is like episodic, like season by season. They're now making a Peaky Blinders movie. That is going to be like a really, really big deal. So
Cricky on the stream says Adrian kind of went off the grid. He has a farm in West Texas.
Good for him.
Landman.
I kind of like that. More people should do that.
They
should
get a farm in West Texas. They don't want you out there.
I'm getting fired up, man. Landman 2, the season 2. I'm watching all the behind the scenes of the filming that's going on.
Is Tulsa King out yet?
No.
Okay.
I haven't even seen any behind the scenes of season 3 being shot for that.
Would you say that HBO is your wheelhouse right now? Like that's where you're living? No. Do you have a favorite streaming network?
Because both of those are Paramount.
Oh, Paramount. Okay, so what would you say is your
Landman Paramount?
Yes.
Yeah.
what would you say is your favorite stream? Do you have a favorite streaming service right now?
ESPN Plus, MLB.
Oh, I can't. ESPN Plus still ain't working for me. Major League Matt though was in full effect. I did the
Big inning last night.
Well, big inning was awesome.
Love me some
Big inning was great, and then I had the Cubs Cardinals game out there.
Big inning was great for the Cardinals. Not so good for Ben Brown.
Well,
Yes.
Ben Brown should be sitting in Des Moines right now.
Well, Craig Counsell, why you have him trot back out there to then just give up another 2-run homer is beyond
He
me.
looked good the first 4 innings.
Well, he took him 5 pitches to get through the first 3 batters. I was like, all right, Benny, here we go.
Better than
Let's
Bueller.
turn it back on.
So, a couple of things here from the stream about the discussion about the radio announcing job. Let's see here. Brian says, a response to something you said before the top of the hour. Nebraska fans don't understand that, Matt. We are a total homer brand.
But I mean, I think he's referring to me talking about like blurring the line between having the passion and like being a fan and like
Which you can,
being professional.
Which you can do,
which
some of the best do.
I thought Greg did it incredibly. I thought Greg was great at it. So I don't know.
Like you just don't want to tune in. So this was.
I don't want Paul Allen. I don't want to listen to Paul Allen. I know that might offend some people, and I understand there's some people that love Paul Allen that like swear by him. Not my cup of tea. Okay. There are even times where Jeff Joniak is a little like, yo, dude, like we gotta just gotta call the game.
You would have loved Wayne Larrabee when he was the voice of the Bears.
What do you think of Mitch Holtis then?
A little too much for me. Like it's a little. I truly did love Greg because Greg did that really well. Where it's like I was listening to the game, but I knew who Greg wanted to win.
Real pros are able to pull that off. Where if I tune in, if you tune in to listen to me, you know who I'm broadcasting for.
Yes,
but
you're not.
I'm not over the top.
You do
homer.
that.
You're
really
not screaming
at the Mavericks.
So
and I'm not kissing your butt.
This is a little behind the scenes when Warren Swain was the play-by-play voice. One of his first games, and Warren walked into a good situation. I mean, Warren walked in and it was like, here we go, national championship, which either good or bad, is he like, I remember he brought this up because man, he was not prepared to be the voice of the Huskers. I just think you
said he came from Virginia, right?
Yeah, he came from Virginia and they loved him in Virginia. And he said about 3 years in, he said, sometimes I wonder if I should have left because that was a really, really good job. And, people, Kent's loved. Okay.
Yeah.
And so he had to replace Kent. And that was just, Kent and Gary were out. And so then it was Warren and Adrian that all of a sudden were in the booth and the games aren't on KFAB. They're on this radio. Well, not 1620 because 1620 was not around, but they were on KCAR. The signal was not as good. The technical stuff was just a friggin' nightmare.
So you get blamed with everyone else.
Yeah. So Warren, like the third game in the 96 season.
At Arizona State?
This was post Arizona State. Because that game was a disaster. That behind the scenes, that game was a disaster radio wise. Somebody just went after him because he had the same emotion on a touchdown for the opposing team that he had for Nebraska.
Oh, no.
And it was the first time that he told me he got confronted. He was somewhere in Omaha. And Warren kept to himself. He didn't go out very much. It was really kind of a sad run for somebody who was really, really nice. He had a huge heart that I don't think enough people knew about. And he was scrambling his entire time that he was here as the voice of the Huskers. But he told me he got confronted.
That's crazy.
He got confronted by somebody that was like, "You're not a real Husker." And I don't think Warren had the tools to like, okay, well, excuse me, sir, because Warren was so friggin' nice.
Sure.
Okay, he was the friendliest guy, and he said this guy confronted him, and he said, "We don't do that here." And Warren said, "Excuse me?"
Yeah.
And he goes, "When the Huskers score, the Huskers score. When the opponent scores, the Huskers scored." And he was like, "What?" So he told me the story. Like, this was
never lose.
Like a couple years after the fact.
Yeah.
And I was like,
and this is
that's kind of true because if you're giving the same emotion for a Nebraska touchdown and then the other team scores and it's the same, that 2-yard run touchdown. I can't remember what exactly his touchdown.
The world famous Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yeah.
I don't think
that would not go over well.
Yeah,
Husker Network.
don't do that, Kyle. Like, don't scream like that and be like, and the Michigan men get into the end zone. Like, don't announce the opponent like that. But I don't want you to be like, Gene Honda and be like,
nice
number 42,
Lawrence
Miles
Tanter
Plumlee.
Okay, so what you don't
Wallace.
want is something that really now we're off and running here today. That bugs the crap out of me as a Nebraska basketball fan, as a season ticket holder that goes to a lot of games.
Yeah,
I hate how they do the PA. I don't dislike the person that does the PA.
Right.
I think JP is really, really good, and I like him. And I don't know if this is, but how they barely announce the visiting team.
That's true. Connor does that too.
How they barely and then even when they score.
Once again, there is a balance. There's a balance to everything.
Owen Freeman for 2.
Yeah.
Houston.
Bryce Williams, 3, boom. I mean, but even the lineups, like the lineups just bug.
The best one was?
I like what they do with Nebraska and the presentation and stuff, but the lineups are like 6'11" forward from Western Owen Freeman, number 32.
My favorite.
Oklahoma City did that the other night with the Pacers.
He just flies through that, and I'm like,
the best one was Michael Hauser for 3. And then on the other end, Boogie Coleman.
You okay?
You can start doing a Matthew McConaughey over there? What are you doing?
We're indigestion.
My acid reflux.
Oh, you scared me. I was like, I'm not CPR certified anymore.
Oh, I almost threw up there.
We've had that happen in this
Boogie
studio.
Coleman, though. Whenever they announce Boogie Coleman, just scream it from the. But it was funny with Boogie Coleman. JP didn't know if he should do Jerron Coleman or Boogie Coleman. So when Boogie would get a foul, he was Jerron Coleman. But when Boogie would make a bucket,
he
was Boogie Coleman.
The other part of the whole radio discussion when it comes to Nebraska athletics, and again, this is a special state where radio still matters. Thank God for our business. And it's evolved, and I think you'll see some new stuff with the radio network and things, how they present things and how they do things, and can try and stay on the front of technology because it's always evolving. Is the radio still matters? Like yes, all the games are on TV, and we can go. If it's not on one of your networks, it's going to be on the Big Ten network. All the basketball games are on TV. Radio, baseball is the one, and baseball is such an ideal radio sport. Not every game's on TV, and so you hear more people say, "Hey, yeah, I was listening to Ben and Nick on the radio," or whoever's doing the game. Is you now have, because we have there's a new affiliate in Omaha. Nebraska has lost the 2 biggest sticks. So this little inside radio here, 50,000 waters, just blowtorches, where you can get them all over the area, KFAB and 590. So they lost KFAB. KFAB said, this is a losing proposition.
Sure.
590 basically said the same thing. And so now they're on a new affiliate in Omaha as well. So it's not only a new voice, but it's a new affiliate in Omaha that has never had the Huskers before. Good people over there. Know a lot of them. Some of them used to work in this building. They'll do a really, really good job. But it's a different place to go to get your games. So I think this is where it changes is, does the radio station matter, or does the app in your hand matter more when it comes to listening to your favorite sports team on the radio?
For me, it's the phone.
Yeah.
It's all about the phone. Like when there have been certain times where maybe I've been out and about for whatever reason and I've missed, a drive, or I've missed a couple minutes of a game because I have to go here, or I have to grab this, or I have to do that. And when I leave, I open up my phone, I go to my app, like my affiliate app, click on it, and I plug my headphones in. And then I walk and I go and do whatever I need to do. And then sometimes I've caught myself, especially with Greg, where I'm watching the game and I sit back down and I just keep the headphones in, and I just.
How do you do that though?
Well, I'm watching
a delay,
but I'm watching the game. Well,
I could. I would lose my mind, unfortunately.
It would
take me about 5 seconds
because you're going to be way behind.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But I would just catch myself doing that. I wasn't doing it in every game. No.
I'm going to put myself through torture. I'm going to
No,
listen to the game and watch the game, and there's about a 23-second delay.
No. I'm talking about like I would.
That's
be
like your
walking,
Colorado story where you could hear the
I
stadium in the
literally,
distance.
mom would be like, "Hey, you got to go and pick up lunch," and I would like go plug the game in, and then I would walk back in, and I would like, then I would like take it out. But what I'm saying though is it's all about the phone, like the apps and everything like that. And just having that accessible. Like I have 3 radio apps on my phone.
Do you have the 1620 The Zone app?
I have 1620 The Zone, and my 2 former employers are on my phone.
John writes in the Equitable Bank inbox where you can chime in as well. Gary at 1620thezone.com or Matt at 1620thezone.com. It says Warren Swain would get as even more excited for the opponent making a good play than Nebraska. It was a brutal listen. I was unfortunate, but at times it was true.
It just that kind of startles me a little bit too, where it's like it was the 96 season and they were really, really good and they were, winning a lot of games, and he got called out for announcing an opponent's.
Well, things don't go well. They blame you. Things
so
go
you,
well.
You got to remember also back in that time, there very few games were on TV.
Yep,
sure.
So the radio, it's being the voice of the Huskers. Again, there's only been 6 gentlemen that have been it in over 50 years. I mean, it's a prestigious job.
Yes.
It is a great job.
1 o'clock, no TV was a big
deal. There's a lot of
deal.
responsibility that comes with it. It's changed a little bit because of the access to TV. But back when Lyle there's also a moment, and I love talking about this. I'm not going to talk about it because it's not great sports talk radio, but there were times where we had multiple people that were doing Nebraska games at the same time, multiple radio stations in Lincoln, until we got Lyle and then Kent and KFAB have as many games on TV. So the radio was a bigger deal. Like that was your access.
The biggest deal.
You either went to the game in Lincoln or you were listening on the radio. So the passion for the radio announcer was even more back in those days because they were your eyes and your ears to what was going on because you were getting it out of your transistor, So there probably was more scrutiny on are you pro Husker or not. Also, at the time, Nebraska was kicking the crap out of everybody and they were winning. It was kind of fun. Okay. And you're either one of us or you're not. That's what it became in the 90s. You were either one of us or you were not. And I don't care if it was a player, a coach, a fan, the radio announcer better be one of us. And Warren didn't completely understand that it's okay to be a little bit homerish because that's what people want you.
They want you to know you're one of them.
Because Nebraska kicked the crap out of people in 96 and 97.
Have fun. Have a good time. Announce. I wonder though if if there has really been like a pullback of like people not wanting as big of a homer like on the radio, because I still think that I
think the pullback is
I think
is
it
the
depends on
age,
where you are.
the age of people that listen.
Yes.
Well, I do think though that having the apps and having that available like to people is massive for radio in general and for the stations in general. But at the same time, I don't know how many. Now I know in this town, because this town is not this town, but this state, and with Nebraska athletics, it's different, right? Because the Huskers mean so much, and I know that a lot of people knew who Greg Sharp was, and they know now who Kyle Crooks is and who the voice of the radio is. But I just think in general, I don't know too many kids my age or younger than me who really know who the voice of their teams are, their radio voice. They might know their TV voices, but I don't know how many that really know, oh, that's the voice of this radio.
Yeah, I think it's a transition to the younger. See, that's where you have to figure out how to reach the younger, that they're going to consume a game on the radio.
No, that's a big challenge with all these networks now. It's like, how can they bridge it to the next generation? I've been through that in job interviews too.
I don't know if it's how do they consume it on the radio, because I think at this point, the radio for kids my age is more so just what we have in the car. Like, I really don't know how many kids have a legitimate transistor radio outside of their vehicle, but it is, how do we get it to the platforms in which they're on? How do we meet them to where they're already going?
Yeah. You know how they used to judge the popularity of the Nebraska radio broadcast back in the 90s?
How?
So you would, people that were on the network, not that sold for the network, they either had seats in the stadium or would sit up in the suite where they would entertain their clients and stuff like that. They would do a hand count
Really?
of people that were listening to the game in the stadium. Like they wouldn't have an exact count,
sure,
but they would look around and you still
you
see
could tell.
So this is why I always think Nebraska is unique, and I hope this never changes. Is you still see people that like to listen to the game in the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know how they did it back in the day when there was a delay.
Yeah.
But now you can, like our station down in Lincoln Broadcast House, they do a great job of they sync it. So there is no delay while you're sitting in the stadium watching the game. You're hearing the exact same thing of what's going on.
Yeah.
But they used to back in the 90s, they would judge the popularity of the radio broadcast on how many people in the stadium were listening. And it's not as much as it used to be.
Okay.
Not everybody has walking around with the single headphones that's got the little antenna.
Yeah.
Now it's more like earbuds. I mean, people still do. But back then, that was, people would bring in a transistor radio and they would just turn it on so people around them could hear, who Kent or Warren or whoever was doing the game. So I hope that never leaves, that somebody still goes to the game and they listen to the game on the radio. They wear the little Walkman headphones and stuff.
Sure. They used to have the little radios that carry with them.
So when I was at Broadcast House and we were the network, they would have their salespeople would average Saturday sitting in the stands. They'd look around and they'd be like, yeah, there's a lot of people that listen to the game, because if not, then you're like, okay, why not?
How
come people are not listening to the game in the stadium?
Half joke and half serious. I hope they never take the radio broadcast out of the bathrooms. Okay. I seriously, I love it when you just walk into the bathroom.
Oh, same.
And then you go and you can hear it and you're still along with the game. But the best part is when you're sitting on the toilet or whatever, you're doing your business and they drop a stat, right? They drop like a trend in the game. They're like, oh, this guy, he's 0 for his last 36, or it's like he's hitting 434 against lefties. And then you walk back to your seat and then you drop that stat to your buddies. You're all smart. Like, you know what you're talking about. That's the best part. Or if you're on the John and then they hit a homer.
Yeah. Like Cal Raleigh or what?
Yeah. He had another one last night.
That's why they call him the big dumper, number 32.
Nicely.
Sam McKewon is going to join us before the hour is over. We'll talk some Cruton. Yesterday, Nebraska got a dog who is, if he's not in your Super 6 of your class of 10.
I was about to say.
I don't think it'll be much larger than 10.
Yeah, we had talked to people who said like 13 to 15. I mean, the whole time we've known that this is small.
I think it'll be a class of 10.
Okay.
So Nebraska actually might be done. Or they're close to being done.
That'd be
a couple of 3 or 4 more spots to go.
They've gotten a lot of guys in the years past, but it'd be very interesting to only get a group of 10 guys. But they did bring in 16 from the portal.
All right, Sam McKewon will join us before the hour is over. A little bit later, Brian Christopherson and Andy Kendi, who will put a wrap on the 2025 College World Series. If he believes that the College World Series should return for its 76th year in Omaha, or it should go away. That'll be the pressing question we ask AK when he joins us about 9:45. And Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone. All right, a pertinent question for you, as it is raining once again in Omaha, and some places had some storms overnight roll through, is what if you encounter some damage to your roof, your siding, your gutters? What do you do? Well, what you should do first to protect the most valuable asset you own, your home, is turn it over to the MVPs of roofing in Omaha, Moose Roofing. Pat Moose, his entire crew, Chris, he'll come out. They do an amazing job. And they walk you through the whole process. The communication is top notch. Okay. Sometimes when you're dealing with a contractor, you're like, okay, is this a bunch of BS? Nope. You know what? You get real-time conversation, real-time results from the guys and gals at Moose Roofing. Great company, not only to work for, but also to work with. What they do is they come out, they get to know you. They take plenty of pictures. They get on your roof. They assess your siding, your gutters, anything that you think needs to be looked at, and then they will present all the information to you, and they will put together the best solutions. And they are always on the front end of technologies, and it's changing with Moose Roofing. So they can help you with the lifetime of your roof. Also, how to save money. That's what they do. They go an extra step for you at Moose Roofing. So if you are looking at your roof and go, Why is that shingle in my front yard? Well, don't waste any time. Moose Roofing is the place to go. The MVPs of roofing in Omaha, they've been here for nearly 30 years. They are local and they're online. Check them out today at mooseroofing.com. Hey, what if your kid came to you and said, I'm a huge Seattle Mariner fan and I would like a jersey that has Big Dumper on the back of it? Would you allow your kid to celebrate the leading home run hitter in Major League Baseball?
Considering there were two kids with the last name Livy and Dunn on the back of their jerseys walking around LSU, I think most parents would say, yeah, you can have a Big Dumper jersey.
People would think Randy Johnson had a kid.
There are two kids.
I saw him. Why?
And then the dad was showing him off at the radio booth on the day after. So what, Sunday? That was the day after you were there. And one of the kids was sick and tired of it because that he had been parading them around everywhere, having them turn around and say, hey, look at my sons. Look at the last names on their jerseys. It spells Livy Dunn. And one of the kids was fed up. He did not like the charade.
That whole world, man. She went for breakfast at Rally Coffee one morning.
God.
So this is someone that was on security detail. That area. Said it just like she was sitting out, she was filming content.
Okay.
And so she was sitting outside just eating breakfast. And I said, avocado toast? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, yeah, all them, that's all he
What
needs.
do you have? What do you have against avocado
What
toast?
a waste.
What do you mean,
What
a
a
waste?
waste.
You don't
What
like
do you
it?
mean?
What a waste.
What if you have
a-
it with eggs?
Whoa. It is a great way to start your day. You get carbs, you
I
get
actually
fats.
like it too.
I think
You get a nice protein
So
bar with it
I
on
think-
the side.
I think people eat avocado toast just because it became a thing.
No, you put
No,
like
and you could
sourdough
say,
bread,
I have avocado toast.
heirloom tomatoes on the top of it, right? If you get a nice quality
All
avocado.
right, he lost me there. I was with him until you to me.
What do
That's
you
too
mean?
much work.
What do you mean? It's not too much work. You just
With our schedule, it's too early.
You just cut
No.
cherry tomatoes in half, and you sprinkle them on there. Avocado toast is great.
It
very
is great.
tasty.
I
It's
like it
incredibly
too.
Nutritious.
And that's actually why
It's
I
better
started
than
eating.
steel cut oatmeal. That tastes like
That also
goop.
is what, well, you know what? Oh, everybody's talking about it. The
Well-
influencers are eating that.
Well,
So I
that's-
must eat that.
That's
Overnight oats.
There you go, Jimmy.
That's the one.
That's the real insufferable one.
So he told me, he goes, she was very personable and took pictures, but the amount of people that lined up just to watch her film content of her eating avocado toast, I'm like, yep, that's a world that is a world that Mike, you and I will never be in and will never understand.
That's okay.
Can I be honest with you? I am in that generation. I am in that demographic, and I don't understand it. I don't get it. She's very pretty.
That's because you got a toe dipped.
She
with
was
us, so
she
you're-
was extremely her like 4 days in Omaha.
Yeah.
She was extremely personable. Like she didn't, the handlers didn't like shoo her away all the time.
Yeah. I have.
And she's also, compared to 2 years ago when old Sharpie over here, her sister wanted to talk to me longer.
Jules done?
Jules. Well, we went to your zoo. Her in 2 years, her media training
It's incredible.
is night and day.
Well,
But she was like, no, but in all honesty, she was very personable and took a lot of pictures and did more things than when she was here. But yeah, Mike told me, he goes, I had to, we were walking the beat and there she is with this line of people that are standing on the street, just staring at her and taking her picture. And I'm like, oh God,
is her
to
allure
eat avocado toast.
Is her allure now just like, oh, I got a picture with Livy Dunn, like I got a picture with this incredibly popular influencer? Good for her. Good for her. She's been popular now for 5 years. It's just dawned upon me because she became popular my senior year of high school.
Yeah.
And I remember like I became friends with a guy in college because we both knew who she was. And like that,
You guys
she was
bonded
the
over
gym-
Livy Dunn?
Not a joke. Me and Ben, he just moved to Omaha, by the way. We're going out soon together. Can't
Shout
wait
out,
to see
Ben.
Ben. But he literally, we were like, I was like, yeah, there's a TikToker, there's this, gymnast. He was like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
But 5 years.
come over and look at pictures of her.
5 years. She's been popular for 5 years. I thought
Yeah.
it'd be a 15 minutes of fame.
Well,
It's turned into an eternity of fame.
no. Now she rates hot dogs as she travels around with her boyfriend. PNC
Did you
Park,
see- did
Wrigley Field, 1-2.
Did you see the picture of her looking at Joey Chestnut eating a bunch of hot dogs? Like the disgust on her face and
There
just
should
the
never
amazement?
be discussed when you look at Joey Chestnut, who next
There
weekend is back.
American
There
hero.
Oh, my God.
absolutely should be discussed when you look at Joey Chestnut shove hot dogs down his
Oh,
throat.
Hey,
America.
Hey,
Hmm.
Iran might go look at our B-2 bombers and go, not afraid. Joey Chestnut walks across the border there.
Nope.
They're like, damn, we're in trouble. It's true. Look it up.
Do you think he
Might be on Truth Social.
Do you think he eats hot dogs like outside of that contest, or does he get his whole glizzy filling in one go around?
Yeah, probably not. Maybe a Dodger dog here and there.
I was about to say,
Hey,
you know,
for money, I'll eat anything. All right, Sam McKewon's going to come up next on 1620 The Zone. All right, we welcome in Sam McKewon of the Omaha World Herald. Kudos to you, who I saw a few times at the CWS, and your colleagues. Fantastic year of coverage as well. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for that. I really did think we did a great job. And, of course, your team did a great job, too, and love hearing you guys on the radio. It was a memorable College World Series. You know, it's not just about the games, but, like, are there 4 or 5 moments that you're not going to forget? And there really were.
Yeah.
And they, you know, the no-hitter, Cade Anderson, the finished Arkansas LSU, and the ejection. You know, and LSU wins it, and that's great. But, like, those moments, those are we'll be talking about those in 20 years.
Yep. Also, kudos, because not everybody sees past the byline on stories, but also you guys don't get enough credit for the photography, the photogs that you have that shoot sports as well. So kudos to them.
Yeah, thank you.
So let's. Yesterday was one of those days that you and I have been around long enough to cover recruiting, and I think we might be in the enjoy high school football recruiting. We used to get days like yesterday a lot, where you get bang bang within 90 minutes, and yesterday was a good day for Nebraska. But let's start with Danny Odom. How much do you pay attention? And we know he's a good get and what he can be. How much do you pay attention to the offer list that Nebraska beats out to get him, to judge how good he is?
I pay a lot of attention to it. And so I think guys can get ratings and they can get offers from certain teams. And I kind of like the offer list a little bit more. The rating usually is kind of backed up by the offer list. So I think that's usually positive. But yeah, I pay attention to that. And Odom's list was really good. I don't know if he had a committable offer to Ohio State or not, but it doesn't really matter. Like, you know, those schools thought enough of him to extend the opportunity. And, you know, if you watch him on tape, you see why. Like, he's a quality football player. And so offer lists to me do mean something. And he had a great one.
They also picked up Jamal Rule, 3-star running back. You know, you wrote today a little dissertation of what you saw from the film. I was watching some of his stuff yesterday, and I really, really liked his vision. And I think that, you know, over these past couple of years, there have been plenty of guys who are fast and have the agility and have, you know, the burst. But I think that the vision is something unique that he has. Over the last couple of years, do you think there are some defining traits that Nebraska running backs have failed to have, which is why we're kind of on this run of not having that superstar back?
That's a good question. You know, again, I'm not a coach and I'm not a former running back, but how would I answer that question? Okay, so one thing I would say is that I don't know that any of them have had, and this goes back to the Eel, Greg Bell back in 2018 or whatever. None of them have really had true breakaway speed, like 80 yard speed. Maybe Ramir Johnson had that at one time, but he had so many injuries that, you know, it just never materialized like that. So that would be one thing. Another thing is, you know, there's just a certain, and I do think Emmett Johnson does have this, a certain level of cadence when you get to the line of scrimmage of how you need to get into the wash or whatever you want to call it, the zone blocking, and really make the first guy miss. And whether you make that guy miss and you bend the run back, or whether you make that guy miss by pressing the hole and getting back inside of the defender, they haven't had a lot of that. They have struggled at the line of scrimmage. They have struggled to get through that initial wash. Now, when Dante Del could get through that, you know, he was not a guy you really wanted to tackle at the second level. Now, at the third level, he couldn't break away, and that was one of the things that I think he was always working on. But I would say breakaway speed, and then I would say, you know, that ability to make the first guy miss and to get 2 yards where there's only one and things like that. They've run with power. They've run with toughness. There's been a relative durability outside of some concussion issues, but elusiveness and then finish it off top end speed. I think those are the two things that Nebraska's worked on. And Emmett Johnson has elusiveness. He does make people miss.
But so sticking with Rule, so the vision for the running back, didn't they just get that guy yesterday? And Emmett is kind of half of that, kind of a little bit of going along what you explained, because it almost seems to me like they found the perfect guy, Dowdell, last year, of what Matt Rule wants at running back. They don't really have that guy on this year's roster. They have half that guy in Emmett, but now they found the guy for 26.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Emmett's very good. So I'm not terribly concerned with what he doesn't have. So I think he's good enough to do a lot of the things that you want to do. But I totally understand what you're saying. You can talk to different people about this. And again, I'm not a coach. I'm not a former player. I don't need the power Derrick Henry element as much as other people do. I get it. I understand it. I think it's valuable. Quentin Ives will have that. I want guys that can make people miss and can run under their pads and get under people's shoulder pads and do all that. And so Amir Abdul to me is terrific. And Amir Abdul was 5'9" or whatever he was, and 195 or 200. And that to me is great. And so, I think Emmett brings a lot. I've been banging the drum for him for 2 years. I feel like it took him a long time to figure out his value. And it honestly took Holgorsen coming in to say, all right, guys, do you realize that you have this player over here who can do all these things, and we need to play him more? And once that finally happened, I felt like, he got better as a player, and he's good on option routes and things like that. He's not perfect. And yes, would you like Travion Henderson? You would. Yes, Travion Henderson is a great player. And Quinson Judkins is a great player. Both of them are great. But I'm pretty pleased with where Emmett Johnson's at. And I think if they give him the opportunity to 20 to 25 touches a game, I think he's going to have a really nice season. So yeah, that's my take on it.
We've seen over the last couple of seasons, defenses are getting more athletic. They're getting faster. They're getting, more multiple. And I think that the scat back or the receiving back used to be a position that was more so a specialty. But do you think with the kind of the changing landscape of just defenses being faster and nickel almost being like a default package at times, that having a receiving back is now not a specialty but a necessity to have on your offense?
I think it helps. I think one of the things that I don't know that it adjusts much relative to nickel defenses. I think if you want to resolve how to get guys like that off the field, then now Nebraska's going to do this. Incidentally, I think you get really athletic tight ends.
Yeah, good point.
That make it very hard to take your linebackers off the field, but once your linebackers stay on the field, Carter Nelson can shake them loose, that kind of thing. And so I'm really intrigued to see how Holgorsen addresses that, because I don't think Holgorsen's ever really been a too tight guy, but I think there's ways that you can do that, and get it done in a certain way. And so we'll see. I do think that for Holgorsen's offense to have a back that can get out of the backfield, even if they're not true air raid. One of the things that the air raid did a lot, or at least Leach did a lot, was okay. We're going to get our running back running horizontally and a little bit vertically, and we're going to take one of those linebackers and we're going to take him out of the box, and we're going to force somebody to go out there and get this guy.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we're going to send our receivers deep, and so we are not going to allow a corner to sit in cloud coverage. If he does, we're going to throw it over the top and beat your safety. And so we're going to throw it over. We're going to send a guy over the top. Then we're going to send a back over here. And then we're going to send this guy here and this guy here. And at the end of the day, it's some guy from Texas Tech against, Philip Dillard or Will Compton. And that's not an easy cover, even as good as those players are. And so I remember how Leach would put Nebraska's defense, Bo Pelini's great defense, in conflict, because he could take that back and put him out and force a linebacker, if you were in match zone coverage or whatever, to go get him.
Yeah.
And that's one of the challenges that they're going to have to work through. And I think Emmett is that back. And I think you're going to see, the program have quite a bit of success this year. Now, all those things are dependent on pass blocking and the ability to scare defenses over the top. And so that means Cortez Mills, that means Dane Key, that means other people.
Does that mean the quarterback? Is the quarterback more important in this discussion than the wide receivers?
Yeah, I think Dylan is attuned to that, though. Like, if you tell Dylan, listen, what we want you to do is look deep, be very comfortable throwing throwing short, making defenses tackle Emmett Johnson, making defenses tackle Luke Lindemeyer. And then when they decide that they're tired of trying to tackle those guys and they want to come up and press in coverage and you want to go over the top, I think Dylan can do all those things. And that's kind of how it works. Like, if a team wants to say we're going to be in press man, then you're sending the ball over the top. You're like, screw it. We're throwing it to Dane Key, and he's got to go win, and Dylan's got to make the throw. I think Dylan can do that. And I think Dylan's very comfortable in the other thing, which is, kind of checking it down if he has to. And people call it a check down.
Sure.
And it's not really a check down. It's a function of their offense that they're going to send guys on, what we call a shoot route or a gentle wheel. And that's just part of their offense. And so do I think Dylan can do it? Yeah, I do. I think he's really effective there. Where I thought Dylan got a little hung up last year is holding the ball in those intermediate routes and like waiting on plays to open, and it just wasn't always open.
What do you think is a realistic expectation for the offense in terms of where they rank amongst teams in the country?
Statistically?
Yeah.
I think if you're going 400 yards and 28 points a game in the Big Ten, you're doing really well, and they're going to win a lot of games. So like that's probably the way I would do it.
Okay.
Is like I think I think if you take this offense to the ACC, it could average 5 points and 40 yards more. But the Big Ten's got a lot of really good defenses, and they have a lot of good coaching. I think that's the other piece. And so if you told me 28 and 400, I'd take that and say, well, they're going to win 10 games. I mean, that's probably where I would be. Now, maybe, 10-game winners tend to average, frankly, more points than that. But I could go through and try to figure out how many points per game 10-game winners in the Big Ten average. And it's probably more than 28 because Ohio State skews the numbers. But I think 28 and 400 would be a really, really good season. And that would mean they were controlling the football. Maybe they were a little inefficient offensively. What ideally you would love is like 431. But that would be a great offense for Nebraska, and I think they would win a lot of football games with those numbers that I just described.
So, yeah, just to clarify, 28th would rank 53rd in the country, but Illinois won 9 games last year. They averaged 27. So
yeah, that's about where I would say the numbers are, given what I think Nebraska's capable of on defense. But you never know. I mean, a lot of times what'll skew it, guys, is, as you well know, Akron, Houston Christian. If you score 85 against Houston Christian, then that skews it. So, like, what you do is you try to look at the Big Ten numbers and see what they do in the league games, and we'll just have to see. I think if they went 28 and 400, you'd like where their program is.
Doesn't it have to start also? They have to at least run for 4 yards per carry, which seems easy, but I mean, last year wasn't. We've had a couple of years in the last couple of years where they haven't. But isn't just a baseline of at least 4 yards per carry?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Preferably 5, ideally 6. I think the last time they went over 6 was 18, And again, in 18, they were running an offense that taxed the defense, and we don't need to get into all that. But, they don't want to tax the defense like that. So, preferably, the baseline is 4, preferably 5, ideally 6. If you're getting into that 6 range, you're a very, very good football team.
Oh my gosh, you can basically do whatever you want. That
right with that defense. If the defense is what they hope it is, then you're cooking with gas.
Okay, so we'll get you out on this. Let's go to the other side because this is a concern until it's not, or it will continue to be a concern. Is new faces trying to stop the run? Is this a defense that you think? Because last year the run defense was pretty good. I mean, they were at 3.37 yards per carry. That's not bad. You can, if you get some help along the way, you can win some football games doing that to stop the run. But is this run defense good enough to not allow 4 yards per carry? Because Rule's 2 years here, they've been really good at that element.
Yeah, that's the X factor, is whether the front seven can get that done. I do think they have the safety support, to handle things outside the hash marks. I think in between the hash marks, TBD. Riley Van Poppel and Elijah Judy and Cam Lenhart and their backups need to be need to be really good. And, if for example, Cincinnati's not like this, but Michigan is. Michigan should come in and say, we're going to put 2 tight ends on the field and we're going to line up and we're going to maul you. And we may run the ball 40 times and we may only gain 189 yards. But in the process of doing that, we'll hold the ball for 37 minutes.
Yeah.
Nebraska's defense has to be able to get off the field. And if you're constantly in 3rd and 2, it's very hard to do. So I think what I want to see is whether Nebraska, when teams come out and say, we're going to run it at you and we're going to make you stop us, can they do it? And can they do it without getting, without doing cutesy stuff that puts your defense in a bind if somebody breaks the tackle?
Yeah. That'll be the chess match all season long. Sam, as always, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, take care, guys.
Thanks, Sam.
All right, so 2 years ago, 2.97 yards per carry Nebraska allowed on the ground. Last year was 3.37. 17 touchdowns they've allowed rushing in the last 2 years. Not bad.
That's not bad at all. I mean, that's really good, and that's what happens when you have a 3rd-round pick just right in the middle playing as many snaps a game, and Ty Robinson, and then a great counterpiece in Nash Hupmaker. It's because I am, and I know I've said this before, but I am really worried about how important Riley Van Poppel and Cam Lenhart are going to be for this defense, and how they just haven't gotten those starter snaps before. And now you're pinning a lot on how this defense is built off of those 2 guys.
All right, a little bit later, Brian Christopherson. We'll continue this discussion about recruiting, because how fired up should you be? Should you be Jimmy Chavez level fired up about the recruiting wins yesterday? Danny Odom's a dude. I love me some C.J. Brownell, but if you're going to lose him, Danny Odom is not a bad guy to insert in terms of replacing him. He would definitely be in my Super 6. He might be my number 1 guy in this recruiting class until Saturday and an offensive lineman says yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Well, Andy Kendi as well, still to join the program. It's Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone. All right. Yesterday, we crossed the threshold of less than 2 months till week 0 when we're up at 11 a.m. watching Kansas State and Iowa State play in Dublin. Those Irish will not know what hit them with Farmageddon coming over to Dublin, bubbling in Dublin with the Cats and the Clones and their new helmets.
They've really gotten a real mixed bag of teams in Ireland. The Irish people have over the last couple of years. I mean, they've gotten Big Ten West football. They got an incredible Notre Dame Navy rivalry, followed up by a very random ACC matchup, and then
it was a good game.
Now we're kicking it off with a true Farmageddon rivalry. They've gotten everything.
That's why it was really surprising that they allowed that game to go over there. That's by far the best matchup.
I kind of like that it was just random type stuff. Like, I wouldn't have minded if it was like, Minnesota and Rutgers, Aer Lingus Classic. Just your prototypical Big Ten East matchup.
Oh, that's a huge
Big Ten West.
That's a huge game to start the year. It's not like Nebraska Northwestern.
No.
But Iowa State, K-State playing in Dublin to kick off the year is quite interesting.
I don't like rivalries happening in places that is not one of the rivalries home, like even like in neutral like if they play like in America but like in a neutral site, I'm not a fan of that either.
You're not a fan of the Cotton Bowl hosting Oklahoma and Texas or Jacksonville?
Well, I'm not going to say I'm not. Well, yeah, sure. I kind of like it when you just have rivalries that are in the hostile environments year in and year out. I think that's fun. That's what makes it a rivalry.
Now, they're doing a good job at the Cotton Bowl because they split the stadium.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that game does not go to Norman or Austin. Now, because of what they're doing in Jacksonville, Athens and Gainesville will host, I think, each get one of Georgia, Florida, which will be, it's already a gong show in Jacksonville. I can't imagine what it'll be like in Gainesville and Athens.
Gong show times 2, even bigger. Are just all, like when the big SEC teams play each other, can we just, it just seems like all those are kind of gong shows in a way. But like a good...
Well, it's all about the fan bases.
A good gong show. Like just an enjoyable tailgating, let's get mildly drunk and then head into the game.
You saw the LSU fans. It's all about the fan bases.
I know.
Chris, who lives in Baton Rouge, I just asked him, I said, how's the town doing? He said they're still drunk. He goes, wasn't totally expecting a title this year like everyone was 2 years ago with Skeens and Cruz. But LSU did make it safely back, and they took everyone with them. So they did not leave anybody in jail here or anything like that.
I think it kind of makes it better that they weren't like heading into Omaha like 2023 being like, we better win like a CWS. Like, it's the fact that they walked out and they're like, hell yeah, we like won a title. That's fun. Like maybe we didn't fully expect it. They kind of
expected it at LSU when they get here. 40% of the time they get here. And here's there was some revisionist history about LSU baseball this year. And Jay Johnson kind of laid it out that they had a bunch of new faces. There were like guys at D1 baseball, and even David DeLucci, who is on the SEC now and played at Ole Miss and played in the majors, he predicted LSU to win the national championship. So some, this was not as shocking.
Sure,
it just they didn't have the buzz.
No.
Like Skeens being the number 1 overall pick. He's a dude and he's a big guy. Like Cade Anderson could be the number 1 overall pick now by the Nationals, and probably. So I think they'll shut him down this year. He's thrown a lot of innings. Mm-hmm. So I imagine, and the draft isn't until July, they'll shut him down, and in the fall he'll go to their complex, and they'll put him on a program.
Sure.
He'll be in spring training. He'll be with the big club, and then they will ship him out, and he'll probably start in Double-A next year. I would imagine by the end of next year, he will have made his debut in Major League Baseball. But he's not a guy that looks intimidating on the mound and just blows you away. He's a strike thrower that still will pump it at 95, 96. So they didn't have the appeal. And they also weren't like the 1, 2, or 3 national seed. But they were a really, really good baseball team that there's some people back in February said, I think LSU is going to win the national championship. Those people, by the way, are still downtown doing victory laps around the Chuck.
They were awesome. I never had boudin before. I believe that's what it's called, right? Boudin.
Keep saying it like that.
People
will love you long time.
Well, how do I say it? Is it like that?
No G.
No G, boudin?
No G.
I didn't say a G there.
You said boudin.
No.
Didn't you say boudin?
No. The first time I said, but I just
as
said
in Llewellyn.
boudin. Boudin? Am I there?
Yes.
Am I there? Incredible. Never had it before. Never heard of it. Never seen it. Never knew it existed.
It's a very much an acquired taste.
I met a guy named Alan, and he was like, full on Louisiana Baton Rouge guy, and he was like, "Come have some of my boudin." See, that time I didn't have the G there.
There's no
I
G- you had a
didn't
G
have
there.
the G there. There was no G, and I had it. It was incredible. It was great. And then I had a jambalaya. Had some jambalaya too at these tailgates. Also great. I've never had more sausage and shrimp combination in my entire life. It was great. I love it when I enjoyed LSU being here for my first College World Series.
We need them here all the time. I said that yesterday. They're the fan base that this town and this series associates with the most.
We just don't need them calling in shots. We just need them walking up and buying the shots and then taking the shots, not calling from 700 miles away, being like, "Hey, let me purchase 1,000 shots for my people."
Chris is asking, what's your favorite part of boudin?
I corrected it the first time.
Usually near
Boudin.
downtown, a red light district.
Sounds better with the G though,
Depends
doesn't
on where
it?
in Louisiana.
Boudin.
Well, it depends on Louisiana where you're at. Boudin, I've heard that pronounced. If you watched Duck Dynasty.
Oh, that's so. My one buddy, I tried introducing him to it, and he
boudin.
was like, "Yeah, like I've seen it before in Duck
boudin.
Dynasty." Boudin,
Yeah.
Boudin. I'll just stick with Boudin. With my Chicago accent, though, I was like, "Boudin, da Boudin." It's great.
Chris also says it's gross.
It is not gross. It is so good. It was really. I had like 5 of them. I couldn't stop eating them.
It's very much an acquired taste. I think I'd have to be a.
It's a little pate, you know.
I'd have to be a Louisianan to eat it on the reg.
Well, the one guy was like, "These are the mild ones for you Midwesterners, and here are the hot ones, for like us Louisianans." And so I had one of each, and I was coughing up a storm after the hot one. Spice a little different over there.
Yes. By the way, shout out Millard North.
Why the shout out?
They are doing something really, really cool on August 27th, which will be here before you know it, because I think today, isn't today the final Tuesday of June?
It's got
the 30 days. Are the 30 days in June?
Next Tuesday's the 1st.
Jesus, what the hell? They are renaming
6 months to Christmas.
One of the entrances to Millard North off 144th is going to be named after Eric Crouch. So they're doing that coming up at the end of August.
Millard South, they had another football player commit to Fresno State yesterday, correct?
Yes. So what is that? 9? 9 commitments, 5 of to Power 4.
It's exactly what it is. So
I can't recall a high school roster that has had that many Division I guys, and they will have a couple of more because they have a couple of announcements that are still out there, and they have a couple of guys that are still being recruited.
Has there been a roster that's had 5 Power 5 guys like that before? Because Bellevue West, they had 3.
I don't think
like 2 years ago. Was there anyone other than McMorris Hall and Kalen that went Power 5 on that Bellevue West roster?
My 80s knowledge of high school football would be limited to answer this question.
That's quite
but
impressive.
not since I've lived in Nebraska that I can recall that amount of scholarship guys on one roster, which, sometimes you would celebrate that. I don't really feel like everybody is celebrating that, but it should be celebrated. I mean, that's not 9 guys that are playing D1 football of Millard South's roster.
Well, it's also interesting too. You look at the Nebraska recruiting class and the state recruiting class of 2026. You have a bunch of guys going to Iowa State and a bunch of guys going to Fresno State.
Well,
which is
the connection
of Fresno State.
Yeah, and why
I don't
they've
know
been so aggressive is Matt Entz, who is the former North Dakota State head coach.
Oh,
who has moved
Fresno
now
State.
USC, and then the head coach at Fresno State, loves recruiting in this area. I mean, look at Dan Jackson comes back, and what does he do? He says, "I'm recruiting." I mean, he just got a quarterback from Seward the other day. Those guys love recruiting in this area, and you go and you get a gig like that, and you come back to the area.
Well, it is kind of interesting when you see that when you have coaches who are from the area, familiar with the area, when they then work themselves up into those positions, when they make the decisions, how the state that they built so many connections in can have a very positive impact because now you have more people at the top of programs looking at your state, understanding the value that could be there.
I need to let me see here. I usually don't look at the state rankings because they're not done locally, and so they're skewed.
Sure.
Jets number 1. That makes sense. Going to Alabama. Dyron Jones from North. I think he's going to go to Iowa. His brother plays at Nebraska. Yeah. So okay. This is a good conversation for people to lose their mind about in-state recruiting. How would people feel if Nebraska's only in-state commitment isn't even in the top 10? Now, I think Jace is a really good player. I would definitely put him in my top 10, but I'm looking at 24/7 right now of the state rankings. And again, I caution you, the recruiting websites, the local guys that go and watch these kids play during the fall don't necessarily have a say. So sometimes these are really skewed. But according to 24/7, Nebraska, because I don't think Jones is going to go to Nebraska, unfortunately. I wish he would, because I think he's going to be a dude. But things are starting to lean towards Iowa, and he just went and visited Iowa over the weekend. Nebraska might not get they won't get the number 1 player in the state, so that's the first time under rule. But they might not have a top 10 in-state kid.
The reaction's not going to be good. And my defense to them not taking a top 10 in-state kid would be, well, if you have a good recruiting class that just has top guys from just all across the country, I don't think it should matter all that much where you get them from. The problem is that they have the 62nd recruiting class in the country right now. So you can't use that defense. And the only other defense you can use is, well, they've, heavily recruited in terms of quantity the last couple of years. So this was always going to be a smaller class and, whatever. And so they were never going to be ranked that high. But I don't think the reaction is going to be good at all. The fact that they didn't get one guy in the top 5. And then also, too, you have to add in the comments from Matt Rule being like, hey, we're going to go and we're going to make sure that the guys who we think can come and contribute here in the state of Nebraska are going to come here. And then they potentially miss out on it to their Big Ten rival in Iowa.
Yeah. I mean, that's important because that's why the Luke Sorensen pickup on Friday, the tight end, they kept him away from Penn State. So looking at this list, wow, they need to have somebody that actually watches football in this state redo this list. There's only 3 on this list that Nebraska
we're interested in.
We're aggressive with.
Yeah.
So,
well, the thing though is that
handle that accordingly on July 4th of Mr. Jones at Omaha North chooses Iowa instead of Nebraska.
Which
they've also done a lot. They were earlier and they've done a lot more legwork than Nebraska has. But
I think that's
up in the air.
That's one of those things though, with Jones's recruitment that I think is more of a bad look than not getting somebody in the top 10 in the state. Because, when you have Matt Rule go up there and he's questioned about, hey, a lot of these in-state guys are going to different schools. And he stands up there and says, my job is to beat Ohio State. And to beat Ohio State is to get the best players. And we are going to make sure that if we're going to get guys in the state of Nebraska, that we're just not going to get them to get them. We're going to get them because they can come here and they can play. And so when you go ahead and you target one of those guys and then you miss out on him, I don't think that's a good look at all, because basically what you're saying is, we're going to make it count when we go and recruit in Nebraska, and we're going to get the guys who can actually play here. And then you go and you try and do that and you fail. I think a lot of people, when he said that statement of we're going to push back on recruiting in state because we're going to make sure that we get the highest quality guys ever, the sentiment for me was that's totally fine as long as you actually go out and get those guys. As long as you actually make good on it.
I don't know.
And that's what I think the sentiment will be.
Well, they were a little bit late with Jones. Now they've made up a lot of ground, and having his brother on the roster. But Iowa, there's a long-standing relationship with Iowa. So Nebraska, I think, from the jump had some to overcome. I've said this for a long time. I said this on numerous shows, podcasts. Not every good player in the state of Nebraska needs a Nebraska offer. And if you're just going to start offering all kinds of guys from Nebraska because they're some of the best players in Nebraska, I think it dilutes the in-state offer. I think when you get an in-state offer from this staff, it means more. And
I do too.
And I think you're going to have 10 people in this class. So I think I think Nebraska, I'm going to say 10, maybe 12, but I don't think this recruiting class will go much above 12 for 2026 because where are you going to put all these guys?
Well,
you don't have space. I don't know if you noticed this, and I haven't done the math, and this is going to take one of those analytic people. Nebraska once again may have one of the youngest rosters in college football. How does that keep happening?
I mean, seriously.
If you on the man cave, my distribution chart, it is lopsided on the left side compared to the right side, and the left side has freshmen, redshirt freshmen, sophomores, and then juniors and seniors. So they're going to be relatively young again. So that's why I say a small class, because I don't know where you're going to put guys, because you're going to have some attrition, yes, but remember, you're still at 105, the grandfathering in 26, so you still have to do the math, and you're probably going to do some portaling, so you're not going to have a big class. But again, I think moving forward, if you get an in-state offer, it means more because Nebraska isn't giving out a lot of them, and they've done their due diligence, and they look at you as a fit, not as somebody, hey, he's a good player that is in Palmyra.
Yeah.
And we're going to make an offer to him because that's what we do at Nebraska.
I'm lockstep with you, and I do not think it is just a healthy thing to do of like, oh, he was born here. We got to make sure that he plays here because not everybody born here and who plays football ends up playing. And we've talked about this too, where, if you go ahead and you recruit Nebraska kids and they go to Nebraska and they don't pan out, it's not a good look for anybody, whether it be the college and whether it be the coach and the player and the high school that they're coming from. At the same time, though, there still is that connection with the state, and you still want some kids who are from the state playing for the team because it just means a little bit more. And there are kids who are born here, who can play, who can make a big impact on that field. And if you're going to be selective and make the offer be more honorary, you got to make sure you go and get that guy, right? And they were late. They were late with Jones. And so that's probably going to end up being their downfall. I mean, I remember when I got here in January, he wasn't even offered yet, and you were rightfully so, like banging on the table, being like, I wonder when they're going to do it. Like they have to do it. Like this is a guy that they should go and get. So I'm looking at the previous recruiting classes. Last year they got 30 guys who came into the team. The year before that they got 33, and in 2020
you're talking portal and high school.
Portal and high school. And it just says enrollees here. So if I scroll down,
I think they're combined.
Yeah. Okay. So 29, 33, and 30. Now, granted, some of those guys have left and some have come in and they've whittled down the roster. But if you do the math, like you're up to like 90, 92, like guys that have committed to your team over the last 3 years. And so it's funny. We talk about the whole year 3 Matt Rule conversation. It's almost as if we're going off of the Temple and Baylor chart of things, this is like year 2 of Matt Rule. Because at Temple and Baylor, they had really, really young teams their second year. And they go ahead and they win games, and then those guys come back, and the next year they have a ton of previous experience and they're ready to roll, and then they end up winning 11 games. In year 1 of Matt Rule, they didn't really do that, right? They used a lot of the guys that Scott Frost had in order to compete right away and try and win games, and they tried patching holes in the portal. Now that they've brought in these back of like young, big recruiting classes, you have a young team where, to me, this season is like they have an opportunity to win 8 games. They may, I think my ceiling for them is 9 wins personally, but in my opinion, this team is really 1 year away. And a lot of this season is be competitive, make big strides, win games, proof of concept, show that, hey, this can work. We can win games in this model, and then convince everybody, hey, don't go to the portal, come back. Let's rev up. Let's go for 2026 and let's make a march toward the playoff. That's what I think this season comes down to.
And I think that season would come down to being happy to live in the middle. I think Nebraska football could make a living in the middle of the Big Ten.
I totally agree.
And I think they should be content with that because you know what? The middle of the Big Ten is pretty good, and it's only getting better. So to wrap up this conversation, and these conversations about in-state kids don't get hot and heated when you win football games. Everybody is And Iowa State's done a really good job of recruiting in this state.
Mhm.
And they've also done a really good job in connecting with the Millard South program. And that's something that, Nebraska probably doesn't have a good rep when it comes to Millard South because they haven't really recruited a lot of their kids. And people have said, I wonder why you're not recruiting me. I'm a pretty good wide receiver. So Iowa State has done a really good job. And I like Matt Campbell, and I've wondered for a while why Iowa State was not more aggressive in here. I would not judge guys going to Iowa State and be, oh boy. I'll tell you who you need to be worried about is somebody that's coming into the state and grabbing kids. That's Big Bert.
Really? Bielema.
They've come in they've gotten 2 players, and both from Millard South. They got an interior offensive lineman, and they got a running back, Nelson Wheeler. And that's who I'd be more concerned about coming in the state and recruiting than Iowa State.
It is
because I would buy if you asked me today, who are you buying right now on this date on June 24th? Who are you buying stock in? Brett Bielema or Matt Rule?
Oh, Brett Bielema.
Brett Bielema,
without a doubt.
on this day. Now that could change by the end of the year, but right now I'm buying the guy in Champaign.
What Matt Campbell has done and what Matt Rule has said has definitely indicated to other teams around the Big Ten and around the surrounding areas of Nebraska that if you want to go and get Nebraska recruits, like it's not as if Nebraska has this massive upper advantage against you. They may not even be going up for the number 5 prospect unless, that is a top guy, unless it's a really, really good class.
Well, I think also some context to this is, again, I'm glad that Iowa State is getting players. How many players did Iowa State beat Nebraska for that Nebraska wanted?
No.
Okay, so you got to give us a little context.
No, I'm not. That's good context. I'm not fighting back against Nebraska or like critiquing Nebraska for not getting these guys. All I'm saying is that if you're looking across the country, you're seeing, hey, Nebraska isn't competing, right? The in-state, the state school isn't competing for all these guys in the state. If we are, interested in some of these guys, we may not have as much competition as we once had or anticipated because Nebraska may not be interested in them.
All right, quick break. Brian Christopherson coming up in 30 minutes. With more, we'll talk Danny Odom, who Nebraska picked yesterday. He's a fake hat guy. Did you see his announcement?
No, I didn't. Did he put on?
He's a fake hat guy.
What does a fake hat mean?
Trey Taylor has started the fake hat guy.
Did he whip it across the gymnasium and everybody freaked out about it?
No, but man, Mom was excited. She was still excited when he put the Nebraska hat on.
There are still kids.
I would be really excited if you watch his film.
The ball skills on him and his ability to get his head around in man coverage is quite something.
They love that size. They have a profile at cornerback that they continue to recruit to, which is good. The eyes are everything. He's a dog. Now just keep him in the fold. All right, BC's coming up a little bit later. AK as well on Alphabet Tuesday on 1620 The Zone. All right, welcome back in. Here in Man, where rock is dead.
Whoa.
Not the rock.
Whoa.
Rock and roll is dead.
Can't do that to me.
Rock and roll is dead.
You know, Dwayne Johnson's going for an Oscar. Have you heard about this? These next couple movies that he has coming out, like where he's not just playing Dwayne the Rock Johnson, where he's actually like acting for the first time since like Hercules or the Scorpion King. Like this is a big deal. Can you imagine if Dwayne the Rock Johnson got an Oscar before Tom Cruise or Adam Sandler?
And he'll be the next Ronald Reagan because he'll be president one day.
No.
President Rock.
I feel like that ship has sailed.
Oh, no. It hadn't even taken off yet.
At one point,
He's
wasn't it him and Tom Hanks? It was Johnson and Hanks like 2024 back in like 2016 or whatever.
I don't know if Tom Hanks wants to be president. He's done everything.
I think back
else.
then people thought that'd be quite the deal.
Could get The Rock and Stone Cold. That'd be a ticket.
God, can you imagine the promos that would come out of that White House? Can you imagine if The Rock, who is a member of the TKO board, became president, and then they had capital punishment at the White House?
Have JR be the press secretary.
By God, I ran.
Why I say that Rock is done. I think I might find some people that are in agreement that Morgan Wallen is the biggest star in music right now.
That's all you, Matt.
I'm not the biggest fan of Morgan Wallen, but I do agree with your statement that when Morgan Wallen,
I don't think there's anybody closer in music right now to Morgan Wallen. I think Morgan Wallen is like right now is banging at the top.
When Morgan Wallen releases an album, it's a big deal. And I think you'd be surprised by how many artists aren't like that. Like there are not too many artists that are still like, oh my God, did you hear the Morgan Wallen album like come out? Like I really think that there might be only like single digit artists across all genres who are like, holy crap, like they just released a bunch of new music.
So he's at Camp Randall Stadium for 2 shows this weekend.
Yeah. He walked out with Mattress Mac.
At Houston this past weekend. Yeah.
And then he also walked out with Drake, which is Drake no longer canceled? Has that been kind of swept under the rug?
I don't know.
Like, is he back in good graces? Did you see that Jay-Z also might be like, he's rumored to do the Super Bowl halftime show?
Everybody is.
Which I thought he was pseudo canceled as well after what happened with, his personal relationship with Diddy and everything that's happened with Diddy. I thought we were out. I thought we were out on Beyonce and Jay-Z, and now Beyonce's like doing one of the biggest tours in the world in France right now.
I don't think Diddy will do halftime.
I'm not saying
he's out.
He will do halftime.
Low odds. On the board, but low odds.
So Morgan Wallen will be at Camp Randall this weekend. Yeah.
I wonder what tickets are.
Well,
oh my God.
To sit in front of the stage for $500 on a secondary ticket market.
Really?
Mm-hmm. There aren't very many available. He's doing Saturday and Sunday at Camp Randall. So, Dannon would like to make Memorial Stadium a year-round destination. I think next year, because stadium shows won't be able to go to Kansas City because of the World Cup, that could Memorial Stadium get a really good stadium show next year. I know he wants to have one more. He wants to have one this year. I think they might be they might be brainstorming about having a kickoff to the school year concert.
Oh, so there was
get like
I don't know that for sure, but I think that idea has been kicked around because he'd like to have one concert before the year is over. Next year, no Kansas City. So if your stadium shows and you've always stopped at Arrowhead,
hi Kenny Chesney.
You may a routing where you've gone U.S. Bank, Denver, Kansas City, Chicago. Maybe you would drop into Lincoln to play at Memorial Stadium.
Taylor
This
Swift.
also brings up another thing about Memorial Stadium. I don't know if it's a guarantee that they're going to go to natural grass.
Really?
So the turf they put in
It's nice.
is the same as Jerry's World. I think that's correct.
Ooh.
And it
Smell the
is as
mediocrity.
close to grass without being grass.
Have you stepped on it at all? Have you
Yeah.
been out there? Okay. What is your review of it? It's
Not.
Well, I
easy.
mean,
Put
I
some
mean,
in the living room
damn near
and-
incredible.
Well, I mean, I guess I'm not running on it and I'm not playing on it. I'm just walking
Sure.
on it.
It just seems like Matt Rule has been so gun-ho from like the minute he's got in here about going to grass at Memorial Stadium that at this point they have done, they changed the practice fields to grass too, that I feel like you're kind of like it's a given at this point that they're going to do it.
I don't know. The practice fields make sense because that's where they're going to spend the majority of their time. I don't know. I wouldn't, if they said, you know what, this turf that we just installed, because it's kind of a little interesting they installed turf, right?
Well, they had to roll it out for the construction, right? Wasn't that the main cause of why they did it, because they can roll it and unroll it?
Well, they could have stretched the life of the turf that was installed just recently a little bit longer,
right.
But this is different.
Okay.
This is closer to natural grass than there's ever been.
So if you really have to go to grass if this works?
You want all these events in the stadium. If they said, you know what,
great
what
point.
we
cost
have,
efficient.
What we have is perfect. It is as close as we can get to natural grass without having natural grass. If they said that in a couple of years, it wouldn't surprise me.
Well, it is a nightmare having, and this is just from my own personal experience of having a concert at Soldier Field. And then 6 days later, they have to go and play an NFL football game on that thing. And there are times where you show up to the field and you can literally see like dirt patches sometimes in terms of like a day, like they weren't able to clean that up.
That's the Soldier Field I knew and loved.
Yeah, until somebody like trips on it and tears their
painted.
So keep an eye, like in the next 2 years, the response from the head coach and some players about the new turf they're playing on. It's really, really nice. But again, I'm not running on it and cutting, so I don't know how it plays. I'm just walking on it. But it kind of, when you're right there, well, you were at the Boneyard thing.
Yeah.
It does.
Oh, it looks great.
It
looks incredible.
It doesn't look like normal turf.
No, it looks phenomenal. But it would be interesting too if they go this season and Rule is like, hey, this is much better than we anticipated, and the injury numbers have shown that this is actually a positive thing. And then Dannon could say, well, great, because we need more revenue, and by doing that, we're going to have more concerts here, so we're not going to grass.
Again,
like that could be
and it's cheaper.
1+1.
Money
Yeah,
to take care
I told you. So they make $69 million off Memorial Stadium. All the events that go on with just basically football, they project with enhancements and the way they're doing the seating. So the revenue generated from everything that's inside of Memorial Stadium, the seats, the concessions, to events, they can go from 69 to 96 million a year.
Let's just flip in the numbers.
Here is Nebraska Bowl Mike.
Yeah.
Good morning, Mike.
Mike.
Good morning, gentlemen. Quick question.
Yeah.
Where was Wandale Robinson from?
Where was what?
Wandale Robinson.
Wandale Robinson from?
Kentucky.
Where did he end up graduating from?
Kentucky.
Would everybody relax? We're going to get a couple of these kids back. That's just the way it goes.
We don't have Vince Morrow.
Stop thinking like that.
Okay.
We're going to get some of these kids back.
So you think some of these kids will bail on their school and they'll be looking to come back home?
That's the way it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
nothing we can do about it, so we might as well use it the other way too.
It's more likely, though, that happens, though, Mike, when Nebraska pursues a guy very heavily and they end up falling short. You're probably more likely to get guys like that.
They know.
Well,
that's the whole thing about keeping the bridge open.
Well, but the thing, you saw what happened with Marty Brown in North Dakota State. It was reported that there definitely was some strains that they had to get through because of his initial recruitment by Nebraska, which wasn't really that big of a recruitment to begin with. So I think it's more so important that you recruit it's more likely to happen if they go after and they recruit these guys and then they end up in the portal, as opposed to they just, all right, I'm from here, now I want to play there.
Honestly, I'm more worried about the wide receiver we just got from Cal leaving after 1 year to go to Indiana. Because the quarterback's there.
Why Hunter? Why would Hunter leave? Oh.
Yeah. Hey, that kid won't be at Indiana very long. You don't have to worry about that. Yeah, Hunter.
But is it 1 year and done?
No. Hunter will finish his career at Nebraska.
Okay. All right. Matt.
Yes.
How about 1 o'clock on Friday at the casino?
Count it.
Oh God.
Warhorse?
Hell yes.
Yeah. I'll DM you, Mike.
Okay.
We'll need some live tweeting.
We will. We'll get some pictures and videos.
Okay.
Beauty.
All right. That it?
Yeah,
Okay. All right. Did you have a good College World Series?
I did. I watched parts of it, and I'm glad LSU stuck around the longest.
Yeah.
Because they put on the best party.
Yeah. Did you partake in any partying?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, next year we'll. I think it's going to come back next year. So if it does,
don't count your chickens before they hatch.
You never know. I mean, I was thinking that.
The second question is, will Nebraska ever get back?
Ever?
Yes.
It's becoming more difficult.
It is.
Do you think Nebraska or Creighton can get to the College World Series without having a first-round draft pick?
Honestly, I think it would be Creighton first.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes me sad, but I think it's Creighton first.
Well, if that's going to happen, it'll be in the next couple of years with Mark Kingston as their head coach.
Be interesting if it does.
Well, I think they're gearing up their program to try and make a run that gets them to Omaha.
Well, they better get here. They haven't been here since '91.
Yeah, Nebraska hasn't been here since 2005. That's 20 years, Mike.
Unless Alex Gordon's going to show up, I don't see it happening. But
no.
Hopefully the next kid's 5 years old and wants to 15 years who wants to make it happen here.
Well, I would hope for a little bit sooner, but you'd have some good bloodlines. I know. All right. Hey, good luck at the casino.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Did you see the graphic that Nebraska baseball tweeted out yesterday
about their pipeline to the pros?
Yeah.
Did you see that Spencer Schwallenbach now leads? Is it Major League Baseball or the NL in innings pitched after his 7-inning affair last night against the Mets? He's had 103 innings. Is that
really
the majors or just the National League?
I think NL.
Okay.
Really good outing, minus the Juan Soto home run, who looks night and day from what he did at the beginning of the season. Looks so much more comfortable. But I was thinking, and I got to ask my guy if he made this and he posted it, but so since 2021, they have 6 top 5 round picks, which leads the entirety of the Big Ten. I don't know. I feel like SEC teams get that in 1 year. Like it was just very peculiar, very niche, graphic, to just tweet out of nowhere, right after the CWS. And
well,
it's just
I'm guessing. So, I'm guessing that they are in the mix for a couple of good portal pickups, and so the timing of this is relevant.
Okay,
that's what I'm going to guess off of. By the way, Bryce Matthews, I don't know if you checked his numbers.
I haven't.
Bryce Matthews is tearing it up of late.
Wasn't Max Anderson having a really good month recently too?
Mm-hmm.
Big if they both got up. We got more and more Huskers in the MLB. Schwallenbach looked really good yesterday, but then Harold Baines was like, I'm not going to pronounce his last name, which I was like, man, it's not. Schwallenbach isn't that hard.
That's pretty easy. It rolls off the tongue.
I know. For a guy who's really bad at pronouncing things, okay, if I can get it, you can get it.
It's not Harry Carey pronouncing Grudzalonic.
All right. My good friend Captain wants to chew my ass. All right. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Sharp. How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm not doing too bad, thank you. Wanted to have a little conversation about, did you really drop your standards to Jimmy Palmer beat Iowa 7 wins over the moon? You really are serious when you said we should be middle of the pack? I hope you're kidding.
No. Here, so this is 7 wins is the middle of the pack in the Big Ten. To me, is going to be 8 to 9, and the middle of the pack, where I put Illinois right now, and I hold Illinois in high acclaim. I think that's an okay place to live because I think the top 3 is very special, but 4, 5, 6, 7 in the Big Ten is really good and is getting better. And if you want to call that upper middle or middle, I don't care. But I think that's a place to live right now and be okay with that.
You know that will not get us into the CFP, though.
Well, not necessarily. It won't eliminate you.
Get us 5-star recruits. It isn't going to get
I don't know
where we need to be. It isn't going to bring guys in. It isn't going to keep the best kids in the state.
No, hold on here. I think this is a league where if you're in the top 6 to 7, you're not going to get 7 teams into the playoff.
Sure.
But if you're in the top 6 to 7 in the Big Ten moving forward, I think is going to be really, really good. And if you are in that continuously and once in a while you bounce up, but you never bounce out, I don't have a problem with that. I think trying to sustain that would be a hell of an accomplishment for a program like Nebraska. And because I'm using Illinois as an example. They just won 10 football games.
Mm-hmm.
All right. They're preseason, some places top 15, and they're recruiting top 10 on a couple of services. They are middle of the pack.
Yeah.
I think if you go back, like the game in September, look at those two teams. You know, they both finished unbeaten in the non-con. They both beat an SEC, or they combined, they beat an SEC team, an ACC team, and a Big 12 team during the course of the season. So I'm okay with that.
I'm not okay with middle of the pack.
Maybe what if I said upper middle? Upper middle.
Upper middle to me is like, and you hate this because you hate it when the people explain to you that the SEC is a better football conference. The middle of the pack is the teams that win national championships. And the only teams that have won national championships in the Big Ten are Ohio State and Michigan.
I think those two are on a completely different tier, and I think you can even add Oregon into that now than the rest of the Big Ten. I think those
Oregon didn't win it when they're in the Big Ten.
No, I know, but I'm just saying in terms of the current Big Ten right now, I think your tier 1 is Oregon, Penn State, and Michigan. Then you have a tier 2, and there's nothing wrong with Nebraska being in that third tier. I don't think there's anything wrong with Nebraska being a program.
Long do you guys expect Nebraska to be in the third tier? Sorry for cutting you off there, Matt.
Sure. So this is what I'm explaining to you. I think that there's nothing wrong with Nebraska every year consistently winning 8 to 9 games, and then every third or fourth season you have a team where it just all kind of comes together, and this is the moment, and this is the team, and this is the class, and this is the roster where you make your big run toward, the college football playoff semifinal, toward trying to win the national championship. I don't think that it's realistic that Nebraska gets to tier 1, but I do think it's realistic that every year Nebraska is amongst, like Gary would put it, the upper middle of the Big Ten, and then they make a big push once in a while.
I think every time
it's realistic that Matt Rule is going to get to tier 1, but we're paying him a lot of money.
It's really hard to get to tier 1.
Football coach.
I don't think he'll get to tier 1. I think he could put a foot in tier 1. I don't think he could get to tier 1 and sustain it, where they're an 11-win football team every year. But if they get out of bed every day and they at least start with 8, and it's your job to figure out how to win 2 more games, I don't have a problem with that.
The thing is when Osborne won his 9 games, he didn't have 4 losses. So a 10-win season.
But we're just in a completely different. We're in a completely different era. We cannot be comparing.
So 10 wins is the standard for me now. You can't sit there and win 8 and 9 games and bring in recruits.
Okay, that's fine if that's your standard, Captain. That's totally okay. But I'm not okay with us saying, well, back in the 90s or back in the Osborne era, or like Tom would never have. He would have been fired if he won 9 games. I don't like that argument at all.
But that's a true statement.
But it's a different era of football. It's a completely different era of football with completely different shift in geography in terms of talent. They're playing in a completely different conference. It's completely opposite from what it was then to what it is now. It's 30 years. We're talking about a 30-year difference. We can't have the same standards.
But 8, 9 wins is not going to get you into the CFP.
It's gonna make you competitive, and it's gonna be able to put you on the map to where you get more and more talent and more people are interested in coming. And then, like I said, you're competitive every year, and then every 3 or 4 years, you're like, all right, hey, we got this class. Hey, we have the magic in the bottle. Let's go and win.
Cap, we got to move on. I appreciate
the
call.
All right, guys. You have a good afternoon too.
Hey,
see you later.
Talk.
Thank you.
That's what I think a realistic height for Nebraska is. It's just every 3 years you make a push. You're just consistently good, and then every 3 to 4 years you make a push towards the playoffs.
There's also part of this discussion. This is where Nebraska, in current state, because they're not in that middle tier. They're trying to get into the middle tier right now. Is Nebraska's kind of stuck between an identity right now of like, and I'm going to use recruiting. Does Nebraska want to recruit with Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, or do they want to recruit the development guy? So they're stuck in, we want a little bit of both, right?
I think it's harsh to call it no man's land, but it is kind of no man's land in a sense.
All right. Brian Christopherson, Andy Kennedy will come up in the last hour. We'll continue this discussion and more. Appreciate the call from Cap. It's Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone. All right, we'll continue a little bit of this conversation with BC when he joins us. Would you guys rather have, if you were a college football program that was trying to base your season on how you make the playoff, knowing that you have to get into the top 4 to have at least a chance, or not knowing anything, just go play, where the only way you are guaranteed something is if you win the conference championship game?
I would rather... Oh, I would definitely rather go in being top 4, knowing I have to be top 4. I don't know. I think some coaches would be like, we would just want to play, but just me personally, I would want to know, hey, this is the marker I have to hit, you know?
But that's a discussion. among coaches about the playoff format. Why don't they just stick with 12?
I think 8 would have been perfect.
I say no to money. Well, I thought 4 was fine because once you get to the 5th, 6th, and 7th, then are they really worthy?
So that's why I thought 8 was perfect. 8 versus 1, 7 versus 2. You don't the season doesn't end on January 25th. Like you don't have teams playing 17 college football games in a season. 8 would have been chef's kiss.
All right, Brian Christopherson is going to join us next on 1620 The Zone. All right, last hour on a Thursday. Let's welcome our good friend from Husker 24/7, Brian Christopherson. Good morning, BC.
Good morning. How you guys doing?
Good. We are less than 2 months away from week 0.
Yeah, we've almost made it, fellas.
We're getting close because now we're like 5 weeks and like 3 days from the Hall of Fame game in Canton. We're almost there. We're almost there.
I would get way too psyched about the Hall of Fame game when I was a kid. I've kind of dialed it down a notch, but
Hey,
that was that was a big friggin' deal.
There's nothing wrong with that. You could still get excited about it. Look, Mitch Trubisky's making his debut today. We're so good. He's going to play Jacksonville. He's going to play the first series, Brian. We're going to see our future.
I hope people do get jacked up about it. I mean, I'm just saying I've dialed it down a notch. Like I have, honestly, with a lot of things in sports. I'm not quite like I was when I was 15 years old, but the Hall of Fame game, it does feel good when you see it, like the guys dancing around on the screen a little bit, and you're like, all right, we've about made it. Let's just pace ourselves the rest of the way, and we can get this done.
How fired up should people be about high school recruiting these days?
Well, I mean, I still think it's a huge part of like laying the foundation for your program. I just think you have to analyze the whole of it, which is, to me, it's like a sandwich. You've got the high school recruiting class, like the 26 class, and then I almost put it together with what's the bread on each side of it? What's the portal cycle class from this last December, and then the one upcoming when you get to that. And so when people give like a quick take on, Nebraska's ranked 61st or whatever, to me it's like, okay, but it's not really getting into anything. You got to like look at like, okay, in the last portal cycle, Nebraska took, I think there's 15 players that are from that cycle that are on the roster now still. Mm-hmm. And 10 of those 15 players actually have multiple years in the Husker program. Like Williams-Winery technically has 4 years in Nebraska if he wants it. And so I think you have to look at like, okay, what did they do last portal cycle? What do those numbers look like? How does that play into the class distribution and all that? And then you got to look at Nebraska's roster right now, where, they have, I think, 34 players total between juniors and seniors that are on the roster now. Everybody else is a sophomore or younger. That's like 90 guys almost that are sophomores or younger in class. And so there's a lot of guys in that development phase right now. And because of the way the numbers are, we knew going in that this would be a smaller Husker class. Rule has said, at least in the spring, he had a quote where he said maybe you take about 15 guys per cycle now. And so if they're going to have fewer numbers, you are going to be lower in the ranking sometimes. So it's just I think especially in this particular class for Nebraska, it's just about not forcing the issue where you just take to take. Not that that's been done by this staff, but I have seen Nebraska do it in the past, and I think that's the key right now.
Back in, let's say, like in 2010, if a school was going after a prospect and they just miss out, they came in second place, it would be, that school that just missed out would say, all right, well, that sucks. We wish I had you. Good luck on your future endeavors. But now, because of the portal, you can still have a chance when the guy, maybe you go after a guy, you come in second, and then what happens when he enters the portal? How important is it now if Nebraska or just other schools miss out on prospects that they still kind of keep that relationship as cordial as possible?
Yeah, it's a great point, Matt. I think it's a really big deal. Like, to be second or third obviously is disappointing in the moment, but you understand in this climate that things are going to possibly come around again. And if you have a really good relationship with a staff, or you really like the place and what they're about, and obviously Nebraska can be financially competitive too. That gives you a shot maybe a couple of years down the road. And then there's examples like MJ Sherman, who was a good player at Nebraska, I thought.
Yeah.
And, I thought he had a great quote during his pro days. Like, I didn't give, two figs about Nebraska basically as a high school recruit. But then I got in the portal and you realize, man, there's opportunity there. Obviously there's a decent financial component, but there's also, I think, a chance sometimes to go after and have a real shot at a player maybe even you weren't even in the top 5 with, or even on their radar sometimes. But to your point, it's a big deal to just have those relationships and understand, like, don't blow up a bridge with someone just because they picked elsewhere right now or whatever. Not that you would want to do that in the past, but especially now, you understand that a year from now, hey, who knows what could happen? Williams Neri is a guy who, spent 1 year at Missouri and now he's at Nebraska and he's around people I think he really trusts, and we'll see where that goes. But that's an example of relationships mattering no matter what their first year in college was like or where it was at.
Stick with the relationships. How big of a deal was it for Addison Williams to be able to court Danny Odom at two different places and finish the deal at his current employer, Nebraska?
Yeah, and I'm glad you asked that, because one of the biggest takeaways from me in doing interviews with 27 and 28 guys too is Addison Williams has really connected with a lot of prospects. They really like him and how down to earth he is, and also just how he shoots it real with them. And I know recruits say that about other coaches, but recruits will tell you there's some guys who they know are just blowing smoke.
Mm-hmm.
And most recruits do not like that. The guys who I think are going to be real players too, they like those coaches who are like, okay, you're good at this, but you know what? This is what you could really work on. They like that because they're always trying to get better. And from what I've picked up through the interviews, Addison Williams has that way about him. And so it's been an interesting month to learn more about Addison Williams, the recruiter, from me, because I didn't know everything about him, as a new coach, but he's definitely come up a lot from prospects. And obviously with Danny Odom, that's a big time recruiting win. And as we say, you got to keep your dukes up now, because the fight's not over. And I do think yesterday was an interesting day, because in the afternoon, you hear all sorts of buzz and stuff. It's like, oh, maybe Ohio State's picking up momentum, and the announcement didn't come right on the dot as to when expected. But the bottom line is Nebraska closed the deal on that one, and you got to give Addison Williams credit, give John Butler credit, and I think with Phil Simpson, the work he's done with the recruits who are out of Florida matters too, is setting a foundation of, hey, you can look over here at guys who have come from the state and they've done this. But the thing about Danny Odom, real quick, is he's he was from Pennsylvania before he went down to Orlando a couple years ago. So he's also kind of a Big Ten country guy, if you could look at his background. And so that's something to keep in mind too with him. But that was a huge get, because he's great with his man-on-man skills. But if you watch his tape, he likes to tackle. And there's a lot of guys who can cover who don't like to tackle like that. And so that's what really stood out to me.
You talked about how young the roster is right now, and that's due in part because of just the really big recruiting classes they've had the last couple of years, which is probably going to cause this 2026 class to be a little bit smaller and not necessarily as high in the rankings. Do you think that because this will be, in maybe the 10, 11, maybe just into the teens in terms of numbers of a recruiting class, does it put more pressure on recruiting for 2027 and 2028?
Maybe, but again, I go back to my first answer. It's like that. Yeah, maybe they get a dozen guys in this class, but pair that with the idea that 10 of the guys from December that were added could be back in the next year. And so that almost like stacks on top of that with me. I do think though, and I've said it before, I think they're as far ahead as I've seen Nebraska be with like the cycle or two down the road after this June. And so it would be nice to capitalize on that. And how do you do it? Well, it's the same thing we always talk about every offseason, but we can say, we really mean it this time. Like, what if these guys went and won 9 games or something, or we're suddenly in the CFP discussion? And then some of these like guys who popped in for the 7-on-7 showcase or the Huddle Futures Forum, and they're maybe like ranked 20th in the country, or like Ahmad Hudson type guys who, when Nebraska fans read stories about them, I think some still kind of roll their eyes like, yeah, that's nice, get back to me. I don't think we got a shot at him. Well, that changes if you go win a lot this season. You can definitely mix that with having had them already see the place and tweak what their stereotype was about Lincoln. And that can work together to give you a real shot. So it's a huge season for a lot of reasons, but one of them is, to your question, like, I do think they have the pieces in place for a really successful class next year. It doesn't hurt too that you have a quarterback like Trey Taylor who just wants to like recruit everybody and is going to be active in that.
I know he doesn't understand roster limits, but that's okay. He's a young kid.
No, I don't think so.
We had this discussion, and so I made the comment, and we had a caller who we had a good discussion. I said Nebraska can be content living in the middle of the Big Ten because I think the middle of the Big Ten is going to continue to grow, and it is quality football, and it's only getting better. Because I look at recruiting, like Illinois is recruiting really well. Minnesota got a big pickup yesterday. They kept their number one player in state home for the third straight year, and they beat Alabama. Now, we don't know what PJ Fleck's future is going to look like at Minnesota. Kirk Ferentz is on the back nine, and he is walking up the fairway on 18. But let's just go with right now in the Big Ten, there are 4 schools that live in the gated community. They are Ohio State, and we're going to keep Michigan in there because they won a national championship 2 years ago. And then there's Penn State and Oregon. Then there is, now this is where I say quality, you go down the next tier of you could include 4 to 5 teams. Those are pretty good teams, whether it be Indiana to Illinois, Minnesota, to USC, to like upcomers, Washington, Nebraska's, knocking on the door. They like to be invited in. So how does one of those schools in the next tier down elevate themselves where instead of a foursome, they make it a fivesome, and your local muni gets really pissed because it's too many people playing golf?
Yeah, I've seen that a few times. Well, I mean, I think someone does it by doing it on the field. It goes back to if Nebraska, and I know some people roll their eyes at it, but what they're shooting for is the CFP. That's what Matt Rule and those guys have on their mind, and everything they're doing with this program and how they're structuring the roster. And if you are suddenly in November one of those teams who's in the discussion, it changes our whole perspective on who can go get what recruit and all that. I like that Rule has the mentality that they are going to recruit like Ohio State does and hold camps like that. And that's how we're going to roll. We are going to present ourselves like we are that. We expect to be that. Anybody on the outside can say what they think and snicker if they want, but this is what we think is going to happen. And we're going to tell recruits this. And we think if we get them here, they're going to like the place. They're going to see, actually the facilities are better than most other places. They're going to see it's not what they probably pictured in their head. And then if Nebraska wins more, then you're in the running for them for real. And so I think that's what it's going to take, on-field success. Now, I will say the team of all the ones you mentioned that I think has caught my notice of late is Illinois and what Brett's doing, with that program. And there's always been that thought, like, what if Illinois kind of awakened and found themselves like that should be a better program than it has been traditionally. And, they got a good thing going there right now. You look at the success they had last year. That was a big win in Lincoln they got on that Friday night that I think really boosted their season and has in turn led to a good recruiting class. And we'll see if they can back it up. But if they do back it up and they go win like 9 games again this year, then suddenly, that they're going to be thinking, hey, I can be that 5th person who is holding everybody else up on the other tee box.
With NIL, I feel like it negates some of the older, now what we call an old school recruiting pitch, right? It can negate championship contention. It can negate, program tradition. But my question is, Brian, is it harder to negate proximity to home still in the recruiting process when it comes to NIL dollars?
I don't know. I feel like more and more, I would need to study the numbers, but I do feel like people are more willing to go away from their area code than it felt like 10 or 15 years ago. That's just like sort of a basic read as I think about like locally, but also like other programs. And I know Rule has said this too. Like if you look at Ohio State, Penn State, obviously there's a lot of players like in that region, but they're national too, like maybe even a little more at a higher clip than they used to. And it kind of connects to the idea that I do think players, especially with some extra dough out there to be had are probably willing to travel a little bit. And, one of the things too, if there's some extra dough to be had, it's easier to get your family to games, right? And all that stuff. I mean, it all comes together. And so I would say that it is a deal where recruiting isn't quite as regional as it used to be, maybe, but I'd have to look into that more before I said that with complete authority.
Hey, this is a little bit on the heels, and he won't be here until next year, but I think Luke Sorensen was a really good pickup for Nebraska. So the current tight ends, they love Lindenmeyer. Okay, Lindenmeyer will look different this year than we've thought about him in the past. Of course, there's Harburg. There's Carter Nelson, who should be ready to go on day one. What do we know about, because I asked this, I'm looking at Sorensen's tape, and I know he likes to block. And he's in an offense where they don't throw the ball very much, but I think he will evolve to become a college tight end, but he loves to block. And all I hear about Markway is that he's a devastating blocker. And we remind people, Mac Markway was here for a cup of coffee, got injured, and we forgot about him, but he's still here. Do you know any more about his recovery or how they think of him in what is a pretty deep tight end room?
I don't know if he's ready or not. I know at the Husker games, he was doing the bench and stuff, and he looked pretty good to me from the footage I saw. And so I've been under the belief that he was going to be available. I know when this year started, he's look out for me in 25 basically. And the unfortunate thing is his injury happened so quickly last camp, 2 or 3 plays in, that this coaching staff just didn't get any look at him up close. Sure. And so even though he's been around, they haven't been able to watch him on the field and what all he can bring. But I do know there was excitement. And if you look back at when he was at LSU, it wasn't like he was playing all the time or just lighting it up, but he was playing early at LSU. He got on the field and got some snaps, and he is a massive kid. And so for no reason should people forget him from the equation. And I think you can make a good argument that the tight end room is as interesting as any position group on this roster as far as storyline goes. When you think about Carter Nelson, the local guy everybody's so fired up about, where does he take that? Markway, starting at an SEC school and the potential of a former 4-star there. And then obviously the Harburg scenario, how quickly can he pick it up and just elevate from going from QB to tight end? And as you mentioned off the top, Lindenmeyer's I always say this, if you say, okay, give me 5 players on this roster who are just going to do their job, Lindenmeyer's on that list. And if you listen to Holgerson, he said he's one of their better receivers. So I do think you're going to see a different Lindenmeyer and how he is represented as far as on the stat sheet. So there's an interesting crew there. Not to mention Caden Echternock got a mention in the spring is coming up. So Sorensen joins a room that has a lot of promise. And I do think you have to give credit to Marcus Satterfield. And I know people say, well, the money still comes in. Of course, you're going to do your job, but not everybody would. And he's recruited well and been humble about that situation. And I think those guys in the room really respect him. And I know Luke Sorensen thought a lot of him.
When it comes to Dylan, what do you think is the more important area to improve on? Getting the ball out quickly or deep ball accuracy?
I wish I could just say both. I guess getting the ball out quickly. That's the thing I thought, even though it wasn't just amazing the last few games, was better. I just thought everything had more crispness to it after Holgerson took that position. The ball just came out faster. And there was a couple plays, even in that USC game, where you saw the ball come out fast, and it just looked like a natural pitch and catch completion that you would see across the country that we weren't seeing enough of the first 2 months of for 15 yards. And it felt like it's supposed to look in the passing game. And so I'm hopeful with maybe a little bit quicker trigger of, I know where I'm going to go with it. Also, a big part of this is, can you have receivers that I think get more separation than last year? I think a big part of it has to be that too. But the question you ask is a fair one, because if you look at Nebraska's explosives last year, they weren't enough. They didn't take the top off defenses like they kind of hoped they would. And I was just looking at these numbers, like the yards per play for Nebraska was 5.29. That's 104th last year. You'd have to like increase by a full yard in yards per play to be in the top 25. So how do you do that? Well, a big part of it's like you hit some more chunks, they just haven't, they didn't have enough of those. And so it's interesting to see who can emerge, or if someone can on a few of those, 1 or 2 plays per game that just lighten the load for all the rest of the work for the day.
It'll be a very terrible microphone. It'll be a very interesting room and moving forward with that whole evolving of the offense. BC, as always, we appreciate it. Great stop by you guys yesterday. I know that was kind of fun. A little rush of adrenaline with back-to-back recruit pickups.
Yeah, it felt old school. And then with a little delay on Danny Odom there. What's he going to do? Like that was a little blast from the past. So I kind of like that stuff, as you know.
All right. Be good. We'll see you down the road.
All right. Thanks, guys.
See you, Brian.
All right. When we come back, I think we should discuss something about the highest paid tight end coach in college football.
Okay. Let's discuss it.
He needs to be discussed in a good way.
Oh.
I know you're Well, you're surprised.
Well, typically, I mean, most people when they talk about Satterfield, it's for the negative. So I like this little switch up we're doing.
Yeah, I'll be the positive guy. You're the negative guy. I'll tell you something encouraging about Marcus Satterfield when we return on 1620 The Zone. All right, alert your friends. I'm going to say something positive about Marcus Satterfield,
Okay.
who is the highest paid tight end coach.
Probably
And,
ever.
I looked this up a while back. There was somebody that was making $1.5 million, but they were also the offensive coordinator. So I don't know what Vince Marrow's new salary is, but he was technically the tight end coach, but he was also recruiting coordinator at Kentucky. And then the Jeff Banks, who has a title on tight end coach. Freddie Kitchens at North Carolina, and Belichick is the OC. Josh Henson is the OC at Purdue, but also the tight end coach. Joe John Finley, who makes $900K at Oklahoma, is just a tight end coach. But so go back to Friday, getting Luke Erickson, who good pickup for Nebraska. That's get a kid out of Southern California, keep him away from Penn State. They keep adding to that tight end position. Satterfield had a big role in that. I think, and who knows how long he'll be around here, but Satterfield being taken out of the spotlight, actually, I think has been a blessing in disguise for him. Because I think him being in the spotlight, there was too much going on.
Yeah.
And I think Saturdays were too much for him to handle. And hey, if you don't know that and you put him in that role, that's on you, the person that put him in that role. But for him personally, I think being out of the spotlight, being able just to coach a position group, not being involved in everything that happens so quickly on a Saturday, actually has benefited him. And I think people are getting to realize, yeah, this is a good person. I mean, if you ever talk to him, I don't know if you ever
I have.
He's once you get past the accent, he got a deep Southern drawl.
He does.
Okay. And, he's always around here until he does something different. He'll always be attached to a soundbite. But he's kind of engaging if you get him away from, you just talk to him one-on-one. I talked to him recently, and I'm like, okay, different than what you see in front of the microphone.
So everyone I knew within that program, and a lot of them were younger, loved him. And you would, there were some coaches that people that I were friends with, they would tell me things, and they weren't fans of them, and that's just whatever. But I never heard a bad word about Satterfield did this, or he said this, or he's annoying me or whatever. It was always positive. And then I met him, and it was the week of the Masters that I met him, and he's a big golfer, and he's actually golfed Augusta before. And him and I talked for what had to be about a half hour, 40 minutes, just about the course, just about.
Did you Rich Hill?
No, I did not Rich. I let him talk because with Rich Hill, I was talking a little bit too much. I let him go, and then. But he's that type of guy where he's talking about Augusta and he's talking about golfing and the fact that he birdied like some holes at Augusta. And then he would ask me about my game. I'd be like, I'm a 95, like 97 golfer, man. But like that means something. The fact that he's so good at that game and he has those experiences, yet he's like willing to relate it back to you and be like, hey, do you like to golf? Do you like to, have you played these courses? Like he asked me, what do you play? I go, Highlands, He's like, is that good? I go, don't play it.
If I was still at Firethorn, we'd come out and you could play. But this is just a thought. Brian said something about Satterfield. Again, just a tight end coach. He can just be a ball coach.
Yeah.
Still, wasn't very good as an OC, but he's not the OC anymore. And instead of furthering that, they made a change. But here's another thing about him and kind of going to something you just mentioned. When Nate Borkature was shopping and he was looking for schools, and it came down to Texas A&M.
Yeah, that's where he went.
Do you know who he relied on heavily to give him advice on where he wanted to go to school, where his next school was going to be?
Satterfield.
Mm-hmm. So Borkature came back after his visit to College Station. He had a lot of questions. He went into Satterfield's office and they sat down, and Satterfield was telling him, hey, this is a great place for you, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
They knew he wasn't coming back to Nebraska. But Borkature says, like, Satterfield was a big reason, like, helped him through this whole process when he could have been, like, get out, you're no longer here, you're not playing for us. So I think getting out of the spotlight where you're not talking to the media, not everything you do is scrutinized, and also coaching a position group, which the positive outweighs the negative on people, how they look at the tight end room in Nebraska.
Absolutely.
I think actually may be like a really good thing for him. And again, I don't know how long he'll be at Nebraska. This might be it for him. But it's like I attach him to Barthel because EJ Barthel as a position coach gets a lot of scrutiny, and rightfully so. But he's kind of changed the Q rating on him by how he's recruited, because he's turned into one of Nebraska's better recruiters, and I did not foresee that coming, especially after the first year. First of all, I didn't
Sure.
foresee him staying here because there was Stony Brook that they were pushing, and then
the Texas thing was weird.
Whether that was real or not, there was,
but that was still strange.
But there's might be guys that are trying to find you a job, and you're like, "Whoa, I have a job." Well, we're trying to find you a job. It's just how things can change. That they finally might have a staff that everybody is in the right role that is perfect to their skill set.
Well, and they're settled, and I think that Satterfield, he's just a personal dude, and I totally understand that you could be a really good ball coach and you can have a lot of knowledge, but the pressure of a position can weigh down on you. Pressure isn't for everybody.
Well, he wasn't
right.
He wasn't good in that role.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't a good offensive coordinator. But I was thinking about this with Barthel too. It's we're talking about, look at this new staff, right? And the fact that Addison Williams has just gotten a recruit that he recruited. He's the first one amongst the new staff that has done that. EJ Barthel every year has been able to get a running back recruit, whether it be from high school or from out of the portal, onto the team. And, Dante Dowdell was a great recruiting set, was a really good pickup for this team. And I think Jamal Rule, just watching the tape that I've seen, with already just he has a really high football IQ already with his just ability to hit holes. I think that's going to be a really good pickup as well. And, there's still some people that think they might get Bonner, who is another running back recruit, which probably isn't likely. But
I think they're only getting one.
Yeah.
And they got their one yesterday.
I just read that might be a thing. I highly doubt it. But it's just how narratives change and how quickly the narratives change in the terms of, you could argue that those were the two coaches at the end of last season that people were like, all right, time to move on from them. Either fire Satterfield, get a real tight ends coach, or a new tight ends coach, and go ahead, fire Barthel and hire a high quality running backs coach. Now that we are 6 months later and we're like, wow, they've probably gotten two of the better prospects of this 2026 class. And Barthel got Trey Taylor and was a massive part in getting what is
and they're not done in Chicago.
I know.
in a place where schools like Iowa have had a stranglehold on the Chicagoland area,
and Michigan too, and Ohio State has been there as well. Give me the Mount Carmel guys. Give me the Brother Rice guys.
Oh, look at you!
Give them to me.
A school that what'd you go into? Holy Name Academy?
I went to Notre Dame College Prep, and we got our asses kicked every year by Mount Carmel.
You said something nice about another school in Chicago.
Well, yeah, because they're good. Because they're really good. I'm not going to say
that doesn't mean you have to be nice.
I'm not going to say a nice thing about Carmel. I couldn't stand Carmel.
Sticky.
That's the school that Taylor goes to. Can't stand Carmel. Mount Carmel, when you win those 6A championships, when you beat Nazareth Academy and J.J. McCarthy by 20 in the state title game, give me all the Brother Rice guys.
By the way, I had to look this up because I knew we were coming up on the anniversary. It's not here yet. We're almost to a year of Evan Cooper resigning and Terrence Knighton changing his avatar and all hell breaking loose on social media on a Sunday.
I was going to Jersey Boys that day, the play. My mom was like, why are you on your phone so much? Who are you texting? I'm like, stuff with them.
All right. Coming up next, Andy Kennedy from KTV will stop by. We'll see if he survived the College World Series. Saw him quite a bit. We'll get his thoughts on that and much more when we return on 1620 The Zone. All right, he survived the College World Series. It's Andy Kenney from KTV. Good morning.
Morning, boys.
Was it a good College World Series from your perspective on what you wanted and what you needed to do?
Well, I thought it was fantastic. I think what you want are good storylines and memorable moments and great fan bases, and I think we got all of those. And the only thing that lacked was those if necessary games, but no complaints, especially not Game 3, because I don't even know what they would have done yesterday. There was rumblings.
Yeah.
I had Coastal won on Sunday about moving that game up maybe Monday, but that wasn't confirmed. But man, they would have been battling weather all, not just Monday, but today and tomorrow. So glad that they got it all in. And we did get some moments, guys. I mean, there's going to be people talking about the ejections. There's going to be people talking about that classic LSU Arkansas game and the bracket final. And there's going to be people talking about that no-hitter for years to come. And I think when you can point to 3 different things about one World Series, that's a pretty good series in my opinion.
Kate Anderson's overall CWS performance ranks where for you in the time you've covered?
One of the easy top 5, probably top 3. I mean, he was, and the fact was, he was pretty wild in his game 1 appearance, and yet they still couldn't hit him, and that was uncharacteristic for him. And yet you look at his final stat line, you're like, oh, that's pretty darn good. I appreciated the fact that, this was obviously very pitching leaning. The home runs were down this year, but it just showed you how good the arms were. And I think when programs look to, how do you get and how do you win in Omaha, you need balance, obviously, but you also need to have a stud pitcher that's going to be playing in the major leagues and or 2 to win in Omaha. And Kate Anderson did not disappoint. That was fantastic. And these are the games and these are the players that you experience like year in and year out, and you say, okay, this guy may wind up a national or an Angel or whatever, but you'll still remember the time that he was in purple and gold and winning a national championship in Omaha. That's the cool part about the World Series. The people who don't know and don't follow this year in and year out, they don't really get it because we see these guys come through and before they are super duper stars, and I think that's one of the coolest things about covering this thing year in year out. Seeing these guys when they're kids and in their element, and carrying around boom boxes and doing stupid stuff in the dugout and all that stuff. And I think that's part of the charm.
I blame the student manager from McNeese State for the boombox.
Exactly.
How do you think, from your perspective, the ejection, the NCAA response, the post game from Kevin Schnall was handled?
Well, that's a loaded question, no question. Because hindsight's always 20/20. In the moment, having a statement come out in game is unique, and then I think that added a couple logs to his fire, the Kevin Schnall fire. I mean, he was still steaming hot, 3 hours after, and I see both sides. I don't blame him for being ticked. The same token, there's got to be, when he came out to argue, would there be some repercussions? I didn't think he was going to get ejected, but you kind of knew who was behind the plate, and he had to. He's a guy that had a quick trigger finger to begin with, but it always is a bad thing when umpires make themselves a story, and when you don't know who umpired a game or officiated a game, that's a good thing, right? That you don't want to know. You're a long snapper and an official. You don't want people to know your name. And now after this game, people are still talking about Angel Campbellton, and if that's a bad thing for the game, I thought it could be handled better on both sides. But man, there's no question that changed the complexion of the game, right? I mean,
no doubt.
I mean, here's the thing. Like I was talking to my brother about this. Would that have meant that if the manager stays there, the head coach stays in, is Coastal going to win that game? Maybe, maybe not. Even if they do win, it's like the Bartman thing. the Cubs still had to win Game 7, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, there's no guarantee that they're going to win Game 3. So, yes, it changed the complexion of it, but people forget, Coastal still took the lead after the ejection. So, it was just a bad look overall on all sides, from the umpire to the head coach at times, in my opinion. And that's definitely not what you want people to point to. And it's almost a shame because I thought it did pull some attention away from what was a terrific World Series.
Coach Knoll obviously has a chip on his shoulder, and he
Mhm.
kind of turned his time in Omaha into I'm gonna use this microphone and use this opportunity to tell everybody how great Coastal Carolina is, which is totally within his right. But do you think that he has to balance having that chip and being that coach? Like, this is something he can learn from, or it ain't broke, don't fix it, being the way that you are got you to the championship series, the CWS?
Well, I thought it actually helped Coastal that Murray State came in and ran the table, because Murray State was the Cinderella. Which when he doubled down and saying that Coastal's not the Cinderella, people are like, yeah, no kidding, it's Murray State, right? I mean, but I think what he did was at least make people look twice at what Coastal's record has been. I mean, they have been a terrific program really since the last 15 years or so. And, they are on the baseball map even more so now. I think if you're a high school kid looking to play college ball, I do think you give them more of a look now after this run. It's just, he's a guy who still, people forget, there's a difference between making suggestions and making decisions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is his first year of being in that job. I'm sure he learned a ton. And if you ask him, would he do some things different? Maybe. I don't know, maybe not. That's a hypothetical. But I think if nothing else, people know who Kevin Schnall is at this point, and people know what Coastal Carolina is all about. And I don't think they're going away. It's a terrific institution. I had a chance to talk to Joe Moglia before the series really got going. And, Joe is obviously linked to Omaha with his time at Nebraska football and his time with the Nighthawks and obviously TD Ameritrade. And it was just fun catching up with him and his, alliance with and his role with Coastal Carolina. And people do need reminding of how good Coastal Carolina baseball has been and how much baseball can affect a university's public persona. Like he was telling me, guys, this is fascinating. 2016, before they won the World Series, I think Joe said that they had like 12,000 applicants to enroll, to try to get into Coastal Carolina as incoming freshmen. And this year they had 25,000.
Wow.
So don't tell me that baseball doesn't matter, at least from a public perception standpoint. It does. And that just, people can point to football programs elevating. Well, here's a case where baseball elevated a whole university's profile nationally.
Hey, so we just went through a year where we celebrated the 75 years of it being in Omaha. I think we had, Baseball Village was packed.
Yeah.
We were there. You were there. Stuff outside of the ballpark was packed. A little bit light in the stands, but maybe to be expected with the some teams that had a lower fan base. The game, there's at least one game on ABC, which benefits your employer. So now that we turn the corner, what's next? What do you think is next for this event to help it continue to grow?
Well, I think more games on ABC, at least in the interim. I haven't seen the ratings. I just looked to see if the ratings were out, and I haven't seen any ratings numbers. I'd love to see it, because on a Sunday afternoon, because this is really a pocket of time where you can really get some eyeballs, some attention to your sport. And I do think that I think that's number one, is getting more exposure for the sport. ESPN is one thing, which is great, and ESPN has been such a great partner with college baseball. But there is an extra element when it's on one of the 3-letter networks, and ABC having that partnership with ESPN. I think it's great for the sport. And I think that's the first place where it grows. I do think that we can. I don't know what the answer is, guys, but having those 2 days off really kind of I think kind of slowed the momentum to the finals.
Mm.
Now, game one, the finals, those ticket prices were sky high. It's Saturday night. I get it. But Sunday, you could really gotten into the park for an affordable price, like as affordable as a midweek Tuesday game. You know what I mean? So, that if necessary Thursday game, the Thursday, which was dark this year, and then Friday having the built-in off days. And I understand you need an off day just in case with weather. I don't know what the solution is. If it's because I don't know if you play a 1-game bracket final, that doesn't seem fair to the team that went 2-0. But man, having those 2 days off in between, like, maybe you can wiggle. People change television, lineups all the time. Maybe you move game one up a day. I don't know. That's something they have to work out. But in terms of where they've gone and where they're growing locally, I think the baseball village has done such a great job in expanding and making that a really cool environment. And then the Fan Fest thing was another deal with the Ferris wheel and all the interactive games for the kiddos. It's a neat event. And, I tell people, everybody who has never been here, who come here and they're like, oh, you were saying we've come here for, you should come here. And it's like, yeah, no kidding. This is like one of the great secrets in the sporting world. If you don't know, you don't know. If you know, you know, it's one of the great parties and great fun events and the great sporting events in America.
Do you think, you talked about exposure for teams, do you think that's an argument you can make for expanding the field, or do you not want to hear anything about expanding the field when it comes to any NCAA tournament?
I don't love the expansion argument. I think what they've got is fine right now. I mean,
I agree.
Would it give northern teams a little extra, some more teams admitted to the tournament? Maybe, whatever. I just think the way it is, if you don't know the format, it's confusing enough,
Sure.
So,
sure.
Like I was trying to explain to somebody who'd never watched it. It's like, the first weekend, just think of it as a 14 double elimination tournament. Second weekend, if you make it through, it's a best of 3 series. Like you got to really explain it to people.
No,
you
do.
Another week. Yeah. If you have another week to it, forget it. So I think it's good right where it's at.
Hey, we'll get you out on this because as we all sit around and go, well, what do we do now before Big Ten Media Days? Tomorrow and Thursday could be a very busy day around here when it comes to the NBA draft. Kalkbrenner, Bryce Williams, and then 2 local guys. Is the NBA draft on KTV?
It is.
Ooh.
It is. The first round, at least, is on. Yeah. And then I think the second round is just strictly on ESPN. So, we are prepared. Kalk didn't want to do anything pre-draft, from what I understand, and some prospects don't. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes tomorrow, and Wednesday and Thursday.
Yeah, I wonder.
It's been.
Yeah, because what Baylor last year did is watch party. What it Let It Fly.
Yeah, he did it at Let It Fly, right?
Yeah.
And it's Hunter's having something, and Chuck's having something at a local establishment. But I DM with John Conte. He's just hanging with family, and I totally get that. Everybody's different, Yeah. So and Kalk doesn't want any media attention either. So everybody's different. I respect that. Everybody has their own way of celebrating, and good for them. So we're trying to get our ducks in a row between tomorrow and Thursday to see, tomorrow about seeing what the deal is.
Good stuff. As always, great seeing you. Great job by you, Lauren, Matt. And we gotta talk to Lauren and Matt, man, because when their day off happened, where'd they go? They went to the ballpark to watch a game.
That tells you everything you need to know about them. I did the same thing.
Hey, thanks, Andy.
Thanks, guys.
That's Andy Kenny from KTV. All right,
Good
NBA
man.
draft tomorrow. Will Ryan Kalkbrenner be in the first round?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes. And I need our tourist car to Sovis.
Can he be playing for a Husker? Oh, my God. Maybe to the LA Clippers at 30?
Maybe the Phoenix Suns at 29.
Who'd want to play with the Phoenix Suns?
Nobody, but they literally have just shooting guards on that roster.
You can only play with the Suns if you're a shooting guard.
I need Arturas Karnisovas to write down Derek Queen no matter what, ASAP. ASAP.
We can revisit tomorrow how wild it is that the Mavs are picking first and having Cooper Flagg at their disposal. All right, good show, everybody. Thanks for tuning in on a Tuesday. Crossover is